Chapter 1737. Boss, there are only the two of us left. No matter what you have, you can come at me. I believe I can handle it. Wen Xiao smiled bitterly. I know how terrible and painful it is to be devoured by the inner demon. At first, every time I was devoured, I would lose my mind. However, later on, I discovered that when you vent your anger along with the power you want, you can realize how to control it. Su Yan pointed at the air raid shelter, trembling all over. Go quickly, Wen Xiao. I really can't hold on for long. Since you can still walk, then leave immediately. I don't know what I will do after I lose control. Go quickly, lock the air raid shelter door. Lock it. Obviously, Su Yan's spiritual power was getting weaker and weaker. The power of the inner demon was not so easy to control. This was the first time Su Yan could make his own conscious judgment during the outbreak of the inner demon. It was really not easy to hold on until now. Su Yan was very afraid. He was really afraid that once he broke out, it would be out of control, and he would never be able to return to his former self. This was a double-edged sword. In the past, Su Yan could not force out his willpower when the inner demon broke out. So when the power of the inner demon was too much for him to bear, he would faint and go into shock. Once he could not support his body, the inner demon would also collapse. But today was different. Su Yan could control his willpower when the inner demon broke out. This was indeed good news, but it was also bad news. Once Su Yan could control his willpower when the inner demon broke out, it meant that the inner demon could not only control Su Yan's power, but also Su Yan's body. This would increase the tolerance of Su Yan's body. In this way, even if Su Yan completely lost his willpower, he would not faint and go into shock. And Su Yan's inner demon could also do whatever it wanted after Su Yan completely lost his willpower. That was the worst-case scenario right now. Although Su Yan hadn't encountered this before, his inner consciousness told him very clearly that it wouldn't be so easy for him this time. Wen Xiao stayed behind because he wanted to use himself to guide Su Yan to release the evil power of the heart demon. He knew very well that once this evil power was released, Su Yan would be able to take the dominant position. This way, he would be able to give Su Yan a chance of survival, and prevent him from being completely devoured by such a powerful heart demon. Su Yan sneered and said in a voice that was already beginning to change. You can't bear it at all. Using your body to bear it. Ha ha ha. Unless you want to die. Leave now. There is still a chance, Wen Xiao. I don't want to attack you again. Wen Xiao, go. Blazing Dragon, go. After you left, this title has always been empty. I know that you aren't the only one. I really didn't give up on you. Go quickly, leave. Wen Xiao held back his tears and shook his head. Where can I go? I can't go anywhere. My sins are too heavy. The only thing I can do is go to hell and wash away all the sins on my body. If there is anything I can do before I go to hell, then I hope that what I am doing now is what I should do the most. Of course, this is what I want to do the most. The black flame in Su Yan's eyes burned again. Use your life to help me? Do something that might not even have a result? You are a lunatic. Yes, that's right. I am a lunatic. Wen Xiao used his trembling legs to support his body and walked step by step toward Su Yan. I have been crazy for many years. My hands are stained with blood. I really deserve to die. Don't be polite to me. I deserve to die much more than before. Su Yan's voice changed, and so did his eyes. Even his trembling body began to calm down. Wen Xiao knew that Su Yan's spiritual power had reached its limit. Now his consciousness was very faint. But Wen Xiao believed that he must still be conscious. If he was conscious, he would let him hear it. Let him know what he should do. Did you hear that? Use all your anger and come at me. Come at me. I am the one who caused all of this today. Come at me. Wen Xiao roared at Su Yan. He tore his clothes and said to him, use your fist and pierce through my heart. Let me see your hands covered in blood. Don't you want to see it yourself? Don't you want to experience the taste of your hands covered in blood? Come at me. Come at me. At this moment, Su Yan's rational consciousness was very faint. Only when the burning anger of his inner demon was released could Su Yan's rational consciousness be reignited. This was the only way for Su Yan to suppress his inner demon. But the price for this method was too heavy. Because even if Wen Xiao, who was the most powerful, stood in front of Su Yun, he might not be able to withstand the blow of releasing his anger. Moreover, the current Wen Xiao could be described as struggling at death's door. Wen Xiao was very calm in the face of all this. He had already given up. He had given up everything, including his life. He could stand in front of Su Yun and understand that Su Yun did not give up on him. This was enough. It was really enough. For some reason, Wen Xiao's lips curled into a smile. This smile seemed to be telling Su Yun that there was no need to worry about him. Only death was where he should go. Su Yun's rationality had been completely suppressed. The current him was a demon burning with anger. And at this moment, Su Yun did not attack Wen Xiao. It was as if this hateful inner demon could understand everything. It would not release all of its anger. It would not give Su Yun a chance to turn things around. This was the first time it could control such a powerful body so freely. This feeling was really great. The demonized Su Yun gently pinched Wen Xiao's chin, as if he was picking up a dying chick. Suddenly he swung his hand. Wen Xiao's entire body flew out a few meters. He slammed into the wall and fell down heavily. Do you think you're worthy of my attack? The demonized Su Yun's voice was so cold. You're not worthy. You're just a pile of mud. I want to use my own method to torture you. I want to torture you until you die. I want you to slowly enjoy the fear of death. Okay. Wen Xiao did not have the strength to resist, but his strong willpower allowed him to stand up. You're a coward. Only cowards don't dare to show their strength in front of others. You think, cough cough, you think you're very powerful. Actually, you're not. You don't have the power to send me to hell. Coward. Wen Xiao was still using his own method to try to anger Su Yun's inner demon. As for whether Su Yun could still hear him, he could not be sure. If Su Yun's inner demon could not release his power, then he really could not do anything else. Coward? You think you're worthy of saying that to me? Look at yourself. You're worse than a dead dog. Su Yun sneered. You want to anger me? Let me tell you, that's impossible. You don't have the qualifications to make me angry at you. You're not worthy. It's you who doesn't dare. Wen Xiao still insisted. Su Yun walked towards Wen Xiao step by step. Then I'd like to see if you can still say those words when I torture you until you're on your last breath. Chapter 1738. When Su Yun stepped in front of Wen Xiao's eyes did not reveal even a trace of fear. Everything was so calm. He did not fear death at all. He was only worried about whether his death would be meaningful. I know you're still conscious. If I can do one last meaningful thing in my life, then I hope that my death won't be in vain. A smile appeared on Wen Xiao's face. I believe that you won't disappoint me. Make your move. When Su Yun picked Wen Xiao up from the ground again with a cruel smile, the hope in Wen Xiao's heart began to shatter. The demonized Su Yun did not really ignite the anger in his chest, and no matter how much he wanted to unleash the murderous rage in his heart, he could not ignite his inner demon again. Wen Xiao's inner demon seemed to have completely dissipated in the battle just now. Evil was always so cowardly. When faced with an opponent countless times stronger than itself, it did not dare to poke its head out. Wen Xiao revealed a self-deprecating smile. After so many years, the power he relied on was actually so cowardly. Su Yun grabbed Wen Xiao by the neck and raised him in the air. He wanted to let Wen Xiao experience what it was like to be suffocated bit by bit until death. Because of the short period of lack of oxygen, he believed that everyone deeply experienced the suffocation. A normal person would basically die in 5 or 6 minutes. It was not completely unable to breathe, but just a lack of oxygen. It was like drowning, suffocation by smoke, thin air, deep-sea diving, carbon monoxide poisoning. As an expert, Wen Xiao might be able to hold on for a longer time, so he could experience the suffocation for a longer period of time. However, when a person was unable to exchange enough gas, resulting in a lack of oxygen, the organs and tissues would be extensively damaged and necrotic due to the lack of oxygen, especially the brain. If the airway was completely blocked and unable to breathe, it would only take a minute for the heartbeat to stop. Unless the airway blockage was removed in time and breathing recovered, the heartbeat would also recover. Now Wen Xiao's airway was completely unable to take in air. Su Yun stood in front of him with a cold smile. using his strong hands to choke Wen Zhao's neck. Soon Wen Zhao, who was already gasping for breath, could no longer hold on. As time passed, Wen Zhao's heartbeat became weaker and weaker. Facing such an opponent, Su Yun simply could not unleash the anger in his heart. He only needed to use this simple method to send Wen Zhao to meet the King of Hell. But at this moment, Su Yun's heart suddenly throbbed violently. This violent throbbing caused his arms to tremble, and he threw Wen Zhao to the ground. Due to being unable to breathe for a long time, Wen Zhao, who almost went into shock, suddenly woke up with a puff. The humid air in the air raid shelter suddenly became sweet. After a bout of crazy coughing, Wen Zhao suddenly realized that something was wrong with Su Yun. That's right, Su Yun seemed to have fallen into that kind of schizophrenia that he couldn't extricate himself from. Of course, Wen Zhao was very surprised. He could not believe that Su Yun was able to control his inner demon when it was so powerful. No. Impossible. Wen Zhao's eyes widened as he watched everything unfold. Yes, the inner demon's anger was not vented, and Su Yun could also use his own strength to counterattack. How amazing was the mental strength required to do that? Wen Zhao knew too well how powerful the inner demon would be once it was possessed. If he did not take advantage of the situation, he would simply be asking for humiliation. But even so, Su Yun was able to manifest his consciousness at this time. Do it. Wen Zhao almost used all his strength to spit out a few words. Don't miss the opportunity. That's right, Su Yun only needed to seize the opportunity to urge the inner demon to erupt with all its hatred, and let it vent all its power. That would be the best time. If he seized that opportunity, Su Yun would be able to turn the tables for the first time. Then he would be able to easily control the backlash after the inner demon's eruption. However, Su Yun, who had gained consciousness, would never harm Wen Zhao. This was the biggest contradiction. Su Yun could not make himself do it. I, Su Yun, have been an indomitable man since I was born. If I can't even suppress this bit of evil, then I don't deserve to be my father's son. At this moment, even Su Yun himself did not know what gave him such a strong conviction. It was the unfinished business in his heart. It was the mysterious prison that he had yet to find. It was the hope that he had yet to see Guoguo's growth in the Dragon Fury team. It was the regret that Bufifan could not leave the Hunter Academy and take charge of things on his own. All of these made Su Yun unable to give up on himself. Wen Zhao had already found himself. He needed a chance. Everyone in the world made mistakes, and those who could turn back after making a mistake deserved to be forgiven. A prodigal who turned back was worth more than gold. This saying had existed in Huaxiao for many years. Wen Zhao's mistake was a thing of the past. He believed that as long as he gave Wen Zhao a chance, he would definitely be willing to return to the Dragon Brigade and beg for forgiveness. Even if he could not get the chief's forgiveness, he would at least be able to put a full stop to it. If a person had to live with guilt for the rest of his life, then he would be better off dead. The current Wen Zhao was filled with guilt. He was willing to give up his life so easily and use the last of his life to do something like this. If his death could be used to save Su Yun, then he would be able to let go of all the guilt in his heart. A person's life was important, but many times, there were things that were more important than life. And these things were things that people would chase after even if they had to give up their lives. Just like the saying during the revolution, life was precious, but love was even more precious. If it was for freedom, both could be given up. At that time, the most important thing people chased after was freedom. And now the most important thing Wen Zhao chased after was forgiveness. Therefore, he would rather give up his life for forgiveness. On the other hand, Su Yun wanted redemption. No matter what kind of things Wen Zhao did or what kind of mistakes he made, Su Yun did not put himself aside. He knew that all of this was related to him. He wanted redemption, and today he did it. Wen Zhao's change was the result he wanted to see. But if this result was Wen Zhao's death, then it would be the regret of his life. He absolutely could not lose to the inner demon in his heart. It was just an evil thought. He had never run away from anything in his life, he had never been afraid of anything, and he had never lost to anyone. He could not lose to himself. His strong willpower allowed Su Yun's body to explode with a pinnacle of control that no expert could achieve. He used his limit to suppress the spring of all evil. Boom. The moment Su Yin fell to the ground, he knew he had won. When Xiao looked at everything that happened in front of him in disbelief. A person could actually use his strong willpower to choose to perish together with his inner demon that had already erupted. The moment the inner demon was suppressed, Su Yun's mental strength had already broken through the limit. He could still smile at Wen Xiao, and that was already his last strength. Wen Xiao was the same. The only thing that supported him until now and still retained his consciousness was that he wanted to see Su Yun defeat the inner demon with his own eyes. Although the solution was much more tragic than he had imagined. But after all, he did it. At this moment, Wen Xiao slowly closed his eyes. He really did not have any strength left. The silence in the bomb shelter was eerie, yet serene at the same time. Yang Zhen, who had fainted because of the stimulation, was awakened by this serenity. He opened his eyes and saw this scene. He should have felt excited and happy, but he really couldn't feel happy. He almost used his trembling phone to call the police. Today's experience would be unforgettable for the rest of his life. Chapter 1739. This loss of 2 lives was absolutely unbearable for Yang Zhen. No matter how the police investigated, this matter couldn't be separated from him. This was certain and certain. Even if the crime of this matter didn't fall on his head in the end, it was really unclear how much of his business would be affected during the investigation. If it was on the news and alarmed the provincial leaders or something, then this matter would really be over. Yang Zhen was extremely regretful. Although the result was what he wanted to see, when he really saw it, he really couldn't accept it. These 2 people were definitely not easy to deal with. They must have a special identity. This was probably the most frightening thing. The more he thought about it, the more scared Yang Zhen was. He didn't even dare to move. He squatted in the bomb shelter and waited for the police and medical personnel to arrive. Of course, these 2 people were sent to the hospital as soon as possible. Yang Zhen didn't even have time to say anything about his car being driven away before he was taken away by the key case investigation unit. This matter naturally alarmed Chen Wei. After knowing that Su Yin was the one who was in trouble, he was even more shocked. After Yang Zhen gave him a detailed explanation, Yu Marin, who was driving Yang Zhen's car to Beijing, was also stopped at the toll station. Too many things happened in a short period of time, so much so that Chen Wei was a little caught off guard. After Yu Marin was stopped by the police, she was also suspected of stealing a car. When the trunk was opened, there was a child inside. This was even more difficult to explain. However, she didn't even consider her own situation. She directly asked the police to take her and Guogua to the hospital to see Su Yun. If it wasn't for Chen Wei informing his subordinates, they would definitely think that such a beautiful girl was crazy. Although Chen Wei didn't understand the reason behind it, he was sure of one thing. Su Yun's identity was special, so there were many things that he couldn't understand. Chen Wei could accept the fact that something unimaginable had happened to Su Yun, be it from the looks of it or the sound of it. Although Yang Zhen had already confessed to Chen Wei once, he would more or less omit some of his role in this matter. Chen Wei could only inquire about this matter from Yu Marin. Now, almost everyone had come to the hospital. Chen Wei had also informed Lin Gu immediately after the incident. Ruan Qingxuang's heart was in her throat. When she learned about the situation in the office, she almost couldn't stand up. Su Yun was in a coma and had been sent to the intensive care unit of the municipal hospital. The specific situation could only be determined after the doctor came out. Zhou Meiyan's expression was also quite ugly, but she still quickly picked up her clothes and rushed downstairs to the hospital with Ruan Qingxuang and Lin Gu. She had always hoped that Su Yun would never be in trouble again, but now it seemed that this was all just wishful thinking. Even if Su Yun himself did not go looking for trouble, trouble would still come looking for him. The 3 of them met up with Bai Xiaoye and Chou Yun at the lobby of the Sky Entertainment Group, and immediately rushed to the hospital. At this time, Yu Marin was begging the doctor in the hospital to let her go to the intensive care unit. However, the hospital had its own rules. This place was not a place that anyone could enter. If something were to happen, the hospital wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. This wasn't something that could be solved just by talking. I beg you, I beg you. Marin almost knelt down in front of the hospital manager. I am also a doctor and I know his situation too well. Please believe me, you really need my help. Please let me in. I can bear the responsibility for anything. Please believe me. Director Chen, please put in a good word for me. Chen Wei stood awkwardly between Marin and the hospital manager. He really did not know what to say. He was not afraid of any responsibility, but the hospital was definitely afraid. Chen Wei was very clear about this. As the saying goes, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Rules were rules and they were dead. Otherwise, why would there be such rules? Those so-called rules are dead, people are alive, and such sophistry were all excuses for those who did not follow the rules. Director Chen, even if you plead for me, I will not agree to this. The hospital manager was very certain. This is not a small matter. It is a matter of life and death. How can it be treated as a joke? This is a hospital, not a place where you can just do whatever you want. Any decision can affect a person's life. How can you make an exception so easily? Chen Wei had no reason to refute this. He could only look at Marin helplessly. At this time, Ruan Qingshuang and Zhuo Meiyan arrived at the hospital. Seeing the situation, Lin Gu could not stay still. He immediately went forward to help Marin. She is really a doctor. She's also a very, very good doctor. My brother's life has been in danger many times, and it was because of her that he was able to survive. Chen Wei was stunned. It was really difficult for him to make a judgment. Director Chen, they don't know a lot about my brother, but you might have heard a little. Lin Gu said. Sister, you and my brother have known each other since they were young. She is a very good young doctor. We would not joke about my brother's life. You should believe that, right? Of course, I believe that, Chen Wei said. But the hospital has its rules. This is not something I can force to change. Ruan Qingshuang's mind was blank. She only wanted to see how Su Yin was doing. However, when she heard that Su Yin was still in the ICU, her heart sank. She stood there silently. Other than praying, there was nothing else she could do. Can you listen to me for a moment? Zhuo Meiyan walked to the hospital manager. The person inside is our family. We all hope that he is safe and sound. I also understand that you don't want anything to happen to the patient. However, there is one thing I want to tell you. The person inside is in a special situation. I'm afraid that even your best doctor would be helpless. She, on the other hand, knows the person inside too well. It's not that we don't want to believe in the doctor, but we want to believe in our own private doctor. Do you understand? The hospital manager was not as eloquent as Zhuo Meiyan. He could only shake his head and say, rules are rules. If I say no, it means no. The person inside has a special status. If something happens because of your insistence, you can't bear the responsibility. You can ask Director Chen about this. Zhuo Meiyan continued. Before you make a decision, I hope you can go in and ask your doctor. Then I want to say that we are willing to sign the liability agreement. If she goes in and causes any accidents, we will not pursue the matter, and will bear the legal responsibility. Is that okay? The hospital manager was stunned. He didn't know what to say. However, looking at Chen Wei's serious expression, he was sure that the person inside had a special status. Since that was the case, he had to see what was going on inside. The doctor inside gave him an answer that made him sweat. He didn't know where to start. This person's body was special. Finally, under Zhuo Meiyan's arrangement, Marin entered the ICU as she wished. She definitely couldn't let anything happen to Su Yin in front of her. Guogua had unknowingly snuggled into Ruan Qingshuang's arms. The two of them hugged each other just like that. Chou Yun quietly looked at the door of the ICU. It was as if she wanted to see through everything and see what happened to the person inside. The only person who could remain calm was probably Bai Xiaoye. She had already told Zhuo Lingyue about this and hoped that Zhuo Lingyue could help them. After Zhuo Lingyue heard about this, she calmly nodded in agreement and hung up the phone. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Even a second felt like an eternity. Everyone had something they were worried about and hoped would happen. How they hoped that God would grant their wish at this moment. Chapter 1740. If one were to ask Marin what was the most important decision in her life, It would be the one she made in the Dragon Brigade when she was 10 years old. At that time, Yumarin had entered the Dragon Brigade because of her innate talent and intelligence. She had been groomed as a combat member, so it could be said that her aptitude was definitely not inferior to her younger brothers. However, Yumarin, who had always been groomed as a combat member, made an important decision when she was 10 years old. She decided to specialize in medicine. This decision was not because of her strong interest in medicine, but because of Su Yun's injury. When she saw that Su Yun, who was bleeding nonstop and on the verge of death, was sent to the Dragon Brigade's medical department, Yumarin made this decision. Although Wang Yi did not support this decision at that time, there were too few talented successors in the Dragon Brigade's medical department. So he agreed to Yumarin's request. When Yumarin entered the medical department, she quickly integrated into the life of the medical department based on her strong conviction. In just 2 short years, her performance was so astonishing. Yumarin, who was originally identified by the medical department as having no talent in medicine, used her strong learning ability to conquer everyone in the medical department. 5 years later, she, who was deemed to have no talent in medicine, raised many questions that were not in the medical field. This once again proved that she had made the right choice and had made the right decision. Wang Yi was shocked by Yumarin's performance. A 15-year-old girl came up with many advanced medical ideas. These were things that no one in the Dragon Brigade's medical department had ever come up with. Not only did these ideas allow the Dragon Brigade's medical field to soar, but they also allowed Yumarin to find a more important career. From then on, Yumarin was completely obsessed with medicine. When the members of the Special Forces were injured, she would always carefully treat their injuries. When Beauty Yu was 18 years old, Su Yun was no longer a child soldier of the Dragon's Fury Special Forces. He became an official member of the Dragon's Fury Special Forces and stood out in a short period of time. He became one of the best among the younger generation and the leader of the new blood of the Dragon's Fury Special Forces. Yumarin almost became Su Yun's personal doctor. Su Yun participated in too many dangerous special missions. Every time, he would take care of the big picture or protect his brothers and get injured. At that time, Yumarin was the first person Su Yun wanted to see after his triumphant return. Then, Su Yun also began to learn medicine from Yumarin. Su Yun, who was naturally talented, quickly figured out his own set of views on medicine. Soon, Su Yun was even qualified to become a team doctor. Su Yun could easily treat the minor injuries of the Dragon Fury team members. All kinds of medical knowledge were easily grasped by Su Yun. It could even be said that Su Yun could be a full-time doctor without a problem. However, for a true medical expert, this knowledge of pharmacology was only the most basic of basics. All kinds of operations and all kinds of Chinese medicine techniques required great spirit. Even as Su Yun's medical teacher, Yumarin didn't dare to easily say that she was proficient in medicine. Su Yun naturally didn't dare to. Even so, Su Yun was still a rare medical expert in the underground world. This time, Su Yun's coma was more serious than before. Under his suppression, the angry reaction of the inner demon almost shattered all of his heart veins. In the field of normal medicine, this was simply impossible to treat. The doctors in the entire ICU couldn't believe everything in front of them, because this person was still breathing. But under the monitoring of the equipment, almost all of his body's functions had been crippled. That was a serious internal injury. Yumarin almost fainted when she knew all this. She knew that Su Yun must have defeated his inner demon for him to faint. But the price of defeating his inner demon was too high. Now not only Su Yun, but Wen Xiao was also in the emergency treatment. Although the news from Wen Xiao's side wasn't good, it wasn't to the point of despair. Wen Xiao still had the possibility of surgery. Although the doctors couldn't guarantee that he could be saved, there was still a glimmer of hope. As for Su Yun didn't even have a glimmer of hope. The best internal medicine doctor and surgeon in the city hospital shook their heads inside. They said that there was no need to save this person at all because there were no signs of survival in his body. The only miracle was his breathing. And his breathing was so weak that it was impossible to save a person who was completely helpless. After all, Chen Wei's status was enough to make the best doctors in the city hospital come forward. Therefore, These doctors were all experienced people who had been through hundreds of battles for many years. If even they said so, it was basically announcing Su Yun's death in advance. Give up, miss. If you've studied medicine, you should know what we mean. The doctor in charge shook his head and said, although these equipment can't be considered the most advanced in the world, they are definitely the most advanced medical equipment in the country. I believe you can understand the feedback from these equipment. Yumarin didn't say a word at first, but when the doctor repeatedly emphasized that Su Yun couldn't be saved, she only said 5 words calmly, he's still breathing. The doctor in the emergency room shook his head helplessly. Yes, this breathing was a miracle of life, but it didn't mean anything at all. Breathing. Perhaps it was because of this little bit of breathing that he was sent to the emergency room. Otherwise, he wouldn't even need to be sent to the emergency room. He would have been directly taken to the morgue. Of course, no one dared to say this out loud. It was too direct. Most people wouldn't be able to accept this kind of direct damage. I don't know what your medical philosophy is, but the medical philosophy I've come into contact with tells me, as long as a person is still breathing, it means that he can still be saved. Yumarin muttered to herself. Even if he's just a vegetable after being saved, it means that he can still be saved. A person whose breathing can't be abandoned. This is the most basic principle of being a doctor. Sigh. The doctor in charge sighed helplessly. If the person in front of them could really be saved, it would be impossible for him to become a vegetable. At least a vegetable's bodily functions were still alive, but this person's heart wasn't responding. Everything shown on the equipment showed that the damage his body had suffered was completely beyond his endurance. He was already a complete cripple. Instead, this weak breathing was something that medical science couldn't explain. To put it bluntly, the doctor in charge wanted to tell Yumarin that the person in front of them was a dead person who could actually breathe. It was easy to make a breathing dead person stop breathing, but to make a breathing dead person become a living person, that was simply a fantasy, a whimsical dream. It was simply impossible. Yumarin shook her head. No, even if everyone gave up on Su Yun, she wouldn't give up. She wanted to save him. She wanted to bet everything on letting him live. She wanted him to stand in front of her and look at her. She wanted him to tell her that she would never joke about her own life again. But what could she use to save him? The person she loved the most was lying in front of her, but she couldn't do anything. Yumarin hated herself so much. Other than believing that Su Yun was still alive more than the doctors in charge, what else was different about her? She didn't know what to do. Facing a body that was barely breathing, what was she going to do? Chapter 1741. Yumarin couldn't bear the immense mental pressure and regret. When the attending doctor tried to persuade her to leave again, Yumarin fainted in front of the operating table. This frightened the doctors in the operating room, and they hurriedly sent her out. The news that Yumarin had fainted, and that Su Yun had no hope of being saved was like a bolt from the blue. To most people present, Yumarin was their last hope, and Su Yun's last hope. What else could they do when even she was powerless? Lin Gu kept punching the wall with his fists. If he hadn't gone to the film and television base today, and could have faced this matter together with Su Yun, he was afraid that things wouldn't be as bad as they were now. He kept putting all the blame on himself. Ruan Qingshuang was sobbing uncontrollably. If it weren't for Guogua by her side, she probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. She understood what the doctor meant. Su Yun didn't even need to be saved. It was really impossible. Even the city hospital's expert said something like this. What was the difference between that and a death sentence? Zhuo Meiyan also couldn't accept it. This matter was too sudden, and she was still in a daze. It was as if she had a nightmare, and she couldn't wake up from it at this time. Naturally, it made her tremble in fear and unease. I want to ask for the patient's family's opinion. Now, as for his funeral, I think we should prepare as soon as possible. These words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart. Bai Xiaoya was furious. Quack doctor. He's clearly still breathing, and you want us to prepare for his funeral? Are you trying to save the dying and heal the injured? Humph. You're just a bunch of cowards who are afraid of taking responsibility. You don't even dare to save him. Obviously, Bai Xiaoya was a little too radical. Su Yun's current situation had given her too much of a shock, which was why she said such biased and targeted words. Although Chen Wei was also sad, he was rational. He knew that the hospital wouldn't give up on a life so easily. It was obvious that they didn't have the ability to do anything to Su Yun. It wasn't that they wanted to force them to do anything, it was just that medical skills like bringing the dead back to life didn't exist. Don't be so agitated. I believe they've done their best. Chen Wei tried to calm everyone down. Even Miss, you didn't have the ability to change Su Yun. This is really not something they can control. Fortunately, Chen Wei was there. The hospital also heaved a sigh of relief. They believed that with Chen Wei controlling these people's emotions, nothing big would happen. We still don't know if he's relying on machines to breathe. And there's no point in giving him an 4 drip. I think that if there's nothing special, can we consider the next step? The hospital manager tried to ask Chen Wei for his opinion, but they didn't dare to ask the family members. Chen Wei was also in a difficult position. He didn't want to disappoint everyone, and he didn't want to make things difficult for the hospital. Bai Xiaoya's phone rang. When she picked it up and called her mother, everyone's eyes were fixed on her. Everyone was waiting for a miracle to happen. Perhaps Zueling Yue could really solve this problem. After all, she was the empress. No one would dare to not give her face. How's the situation now? Is everything stable? Zueling Yue's concern for Su Yun came from the bottom of her heart. This was a kind of love extended to the crows of the house. No matter what, Su Yun was the continuation of Su Chen in this world, and the successor of her beloved bloodline. The situation is very bad. The hospital has announced that my brother can't be saved. Bai Xiaoya's voice sounded like she was about to cry. And Yu Marin, the only one who knows medicine, fainted because she couldn't bear the mental pressure. Mom, quickly think of a way. You must save my brother. Of course I'll save him. Silly girl, don't worry. Zueling Yue said. I'm already thinking of a way. But those hermits have already left the disputes of the underground world and the hustle and bustle of the city. It's possible to ask them to come out, but it's impossible for them to come to Qingdao immediately. So you have to listen to my arrangements. I'll guarantee that nothing will happen to Su Yun, understand? Bai Xiaoya nodded fervently. As long as her brother could be saved, she would do anything for him. According to your report, I've asked around. This is caused by the conflict between 2 extremely powerful and extreme forces in his meridians, Zueling Yue said. Su Yun's situation is very dangerous now, but it doesn't mean that he can't be saved. There's still a chance. As long as someone can control the current situation, Su Yun will be out of danger when I ask an expert to come out and save him. Then what should I do? Bai Xiaoya's eyes widened. Zueling Yue said. When I asked about this situation, I learned that Yu Marin is a rising star in the medical world. She's fully capable of solving this problem. What you need to do now is wake her up and ask her to hold on. She can't give up because of this little mental pressure. I need her to temporarily seal Su Yun's acupoints with silver needles. Seal his acupoints with silver needles? Bai Xiaoya was stunned. Mom, his meridians are already damaged and are in danger. Won't it be counterproductive if we seal his acupoints with silver needles at this time? What if he can't bear it? Won't the consequences be? There's no what if. Even if there's a what if, we have to bear the consequences. If we don't solve this problem in time, Su Yun won't even have a chance. Zueling Yue said very seriously. Only by sealing his acupoints with silver needles can we stop the conflict between the 2 extremely powerful forces in his body. Then we have to find a way to expel one of the forces, so that Su Yun can be saved. With Yu Marin's ability, she should be able to seal Su Yun's acupoints. Leave the rest to me. I'm already on my way to Kunlun Mountain. Kunlun Mountain? Bai Xiaoya was stunned. Who exactly are you going to ask to save him? Speaking of saving people, you must think of Huang Fugua and Wu Qiuzi. Their medical skills are excellent, but they are famous for their pharmacology. Zueling Yue said. But this time, Su Yun needs to deal with the condition of his meridians. They can't help Su Yun at all. According to what you said, Su Yun can't rely on drugs to heal his damaged meridians. He needs someone to help him. Bai Xiaoya nodded. not fully understanding. Remember what I want you to do. Yumarin has the ability to seal Su Yun's acupoints with silver needles. Don't be afraid. Do it boldly. Zhuolingyue said. This is the only chance. If you miss it, I really can't help you. Bai Xiaoya sucked in a breath of cold air and nodded furiously. She would never allow anything to happen to Su Yun. She was going to find Yumarin now and ask her to wake up quickly. Everyone needed her. Zhuolingyue hung up the phone and closed her eyes to rest. She still didn't know if she could invite that great god to come out of Kunlun Mountain with her meager reputation. Few for so many years, no one seemed to be able to invite that old man to come out of the mountain. But for Su Yun, Zhuolingyue was willing to accept even if she bumped into a nail. The most unsuitable thing for Su Yun's current situation was a bumpy journey. Otherwise, she would have directly brought him to Kunlun Mountain. In Su Yun's current situation, let alone a bumpy journey of 1,000 kilometers, even if it was a bumpy journey of 100 kilometers, his 7 souls and 6 spirits would probably be destroyed. Chapter 1742. Although Bai Xiaoya's call didn't solve the problem, it still gave everyone hope. As long as there was hope, they wouldn't give up. Even if the hope was slim, they would still use all their strength to protect this slim hope. He'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be fine. I believe this matter will be resolved. Bai Xiaoya's confidence came from Zhuolingyue's promise. She believed that Zhuolingyue would do what she promised her. She had to do what she promised Zhuolingyue. She had to wake up Yumarin and seal Su Yun's acupuncture points with silver needles. Seeing Bai Xiaoya rushing to find Yumarin, the hospital's person in charge was anxious. He didn't know how to persuade these people. Moreover, he couldn't say anything because of Chen Wei. It was obvious that Chen Wei's relationship with these people wasn't ordinary. Director Chen, I don't know what to do about this matter. Please give me an idea. The hospital staff quietly called Chen Wei to the side. Let me say something. Don't be angry. It's impossible for this person to survive. We arrange for the best doctor. I can understand that they don't believe us. But think about it. Can we just leave them to die? You said it yourself. This patient is a very important person to you. He's a very important friend. We'll definitely do our best. I understand. I understand. Chen Wei nodded repeatedly. However, Su Yun's identity was special. He wasn't an ordinary person. Any miracle could happen. However, these were confidential matters. Chen Wei couldn't explain it too clearly to the hospital. Can you give them some face and give them some time to accept it? Is that okay? The hospital's person in charge was worried about time. They could give them a few hours, but they couldn't give them a few days. Director Chen, this person is really hopeless. If we don't announce it in time, they'll accuse us of malpractice one day. At that time, we won't be able to defend ourselves. I'm here. This won't happen. Don't worry. I, Chen Wei, will abide by the law. I know everything that happens in the hospital. I won't let the city hospital's reputation be affected. Please believe me. Give them some time. Chen Wei was still trying to protect the hospital's reputation and benefits. Sigh, what else could the person in charge say? He could only sigh. Chief Chen, since you're the guarantor, we can rest assured. However, if they're going to act so recklessly, there should be a limit. You have to help urge them. Don't worry. Rest assured. Chen Wei nodded repeatedly. If he thought about it carefully, he was also on Su Yun's side. He also hoped that a miracle would happen in the end. He also wanted to believe in the last hope that Bai Xiaoya brought to him. Therefore, he decided to throw caution to the wind and stay with them until the very end. Yumarin fainted just now because she was under great mental pressure, so it was not a big problem. After a simple infusion, she woke up. But even if she woke up, she was very uneasy because she was facing a huge challenge. In the face of this challenge, she didn't even have the slightest chance to resist. This was what made her feel the most helpless. She lay on the hospital bed in a trance, her eyes lifelessly recalling everything that had just happened. What was wrong with her? Why did she suddenly feel so exhausted in the face of these difficulties? She really had no idea what to do, no idea at all. Yumarin took a deep breath and closed her eyes again. She had no idea what to do, no idea at all. At this moment, Bai Xiaoye rushed into the ward. Seeing that Yu Marin was still unconscious, she didn't care about anything else. She went forward and hugged Yu Marin's shoulders, helping her up from the hospital bed. As she helped her up, she shook her. Su Yin can be saved. Wake up, he needs your help. Originally, Yu Marin really didn't have the strength to resist, but the moment she heard that Su Yin could be saved, Yu Marin immediately opened her eyes wide. Her gaze was serious and filled with disbelief as she asked, "What did you say? What do you need me to do?" Phew. Luckily, you woke up quickly. Bai Xiaoye didn't know that Yu Marin had already woken up before she came in. I said that Su Yin can be saved. My mother has already gone to invite an expert. She also told me that if we want Su Yin to hold on until then, someone must use silver needles to temporarily seal his acupoints. She said that two extreme forces in his meridians have caused a huge conflict and must be controlled by sealing his acupoints. He must hold on until the expert comes out to help him expel one of the forces. Then everything will be fine. Yu Marin was enlightened. That was indeed the truth, but it was such a simple truth that she couldn't understand it. It wasn't difficult for her to seal his acupoints with silver needles, but if she wanted to use silver needles to expel the forces in Su Yun's meridians, it wouldn't be that easy. You mean someone can help Su Yun expel the forces in his meridians from his body? Yu Marin couldn't believe that there was such a person in the world. Su Yun's current situation wasn't as simple as expelling the destructive forces in his meridians. Because Su Yun's meridians had been seriously damaged, once they were eroded by the internal force of a powerful person, he could easily die. If it was so simple to expel the forces, there was no need to invite an expert. Who in the underground world could claim to be an expert in front of Zuolingyue? However, to expel the forces and ensure that Su Yun's meridians wouldn't be damaged again, it required certain unconventional means. Yes, there must be one. Bai Xiaoye said firmly. You are a doctor, so you should know the function of sealing acupoints with silver needles. I don't need to tell you more, right? We have to use this unconventional method to ensure Su Yun's safety. Yu Marin nodded. Yes, this was indeed an unconventional method, but Bai Xiaoye was right. They had no other choice. This was the only way. Then what are we waiting for? Shall we start now? Bai Xiaoye couldn't wait. Yu Marin was worried again. She didn't expect so many things to happen this time. How could she bring silver needles with her? Sealing acupoints with silver needles wasn't something that could be done casually. There were rules about which acupoints needed long needles, thin needles, and heavy needles. They had 108 silver needles that matched different acupoints in different parts of the body. However, the silver needles in the hospital weren't that particular. Yu Marin wouldn't care if it was other acupuncture. However, sealing acupoints with silver needles was very particular. The weight of a needle could determine the final success or failure. It was definitely not a joke. I need silver needles. Yu Marin frowned. At this time, Cho Yun pushed the door open and entered. I know Su Yin has one. I will go home and find one for you now. That's great. Yu Marin nodded vigorously. As long as she had this, everything would be fine. She was confident that she could seal Su Yun's acupoints and make Su Yun wait for Zuolingyue to invite an expert over. Phew, there's finally hope. Su Yun can finally be saved. Thank God. Yu Marin clutched her chest tightly. A good person will be rewarded in life. Su Yun had done so many good things in his life. How could God let him suffer? It definitely wouldn't. Su Yun was blessed by the heavens. The heavens would definitely protect him. Beauty, you firmly believed that. Chapter 1743. Sealing acupoints with silver needles didn't sound difficult, but this so-called sealing was definitely not something that those idle old Chinese doctors could do. Anyone who had learned a bit of Chinese medicine knew how to perform acupuncture. They also knew which acupoints could treat what diseases. They also knew that if they made a mistake, it could cost a person's life. Especially a few unusual acupoints. They were taboos that absolutely couldn't be touched. As for acupuncture, perhaps many people could recite the Du Meridian and Ren Meridian acupoints. Something like the Du Meridian 28 lines of the spine, The end of the tailbone is long and strong. The 21 vertebrae is the waist-u, and the 16 yang passes are carefully deduced. The 14 vital points are opposite the navel, and the 13 vital points are suspended in between. Something like the Ren meridian and the perineum are 2 yin points. The curved bone hairline is depressed in the middle. The middle pole is taken out 4 inches below the navel, and the guanyuan is connected 3 inches below the navel. 2 inches below the navel is the stone gate, and 1.5 inches below the navel is the sea of qi. However, these things were meaningless when it came to sealing acupoints with silver needles. No matter how familiar one was with these things, it only meant that one knew the acupoints. The real acupuncture technique required a lot of experience and practice to explore. Yu Marin's acupuncture technique was practiced on real people, so it definitely couldn't be underestimated. It was like a beginner in acupuncture. If you asked him to use a needle to prick the Baihui acupoint, it was estimated that he could directly cripple the person with a deep stab. A skilled practitioner would understand that the Baihui acupoint had to be pierced horizontally, and the depth of the needle had a lot to do with the technique. Acupuncture was a very rigorous medical science. It wasn't as simple as being hot-blooded and being able to cure a disease in half a year. Even if one was proficient in acupuncture and could cure a disease, it only meant that they were half a master. This was because the ultimate technique of acupuncture was to use a special technique to seal the acupoints of the human body. To put it simply, it was to let Su Yin temporarily enter a state of suspended animation and seal all his acupoints. This way, the two opposing forces in Su Yin's meridians wouldn't have a direct conflict. As long as Su Yin could obtain enough nutrients in the state of suspended animation and maintain a normal metabolism, he wouldn't die. However, there was one thing to be clear. This method of sealing acupoints was definitely not a long-term method. If the silver needles couldn't be removed within 3 days, the sealed acupoints would enter a true state of death. The person who was injected with needles would have no hope of survival. Moreover, this was under the condition that the acupuncture points were sealed with silver needles. The process of sealing the acupuncture points with silver needles was equally important. The weight, depth, technique, and the order of each acupuncture point needed to be judged by the person applying the needles on the spot. That's right, the acupuncture points were sealed with silver needles. There was no fixed order when these 108 silver needles were inserted. Everyone's reaction to the acupuncture points was different, so the order required the person who inserted the needles to carefully observe the reaction after each needle. In other words, Yu Marin needed absolute silence. As for Su Yun, he couldn't withstand the torment now. Even if he was brought home from the hospital, the bumpy journey might cause him to die. This remaining breath was Su Yun's only hope of saving him, so they didn't dare to mess around. In the end, under Chen Wei's communication, the hospital had no choice but to make an exception and find an absolutely quiet room for Yu Marin to seal his acupoints with her silver needles. Of course, the hospital had sufficient evidence to prove that this matter had nothing to do with the hospital. After all, with these needles, whether or not this person could survive was a question. In order to ensure that Yu Marin's concentration was absolute, almost everyone held their breath and guarded the room. Any external factors that might cause a sound would be stopped by them at the first moment. Only Yu Marin and Su Yin were left in the room. Yu Marin shouldered a heavy mission as she pulled out the first silver needle from the sheepskin scroll. The first needle to seal the acupuncture points had to start from the top of the head. This needle was called the Sea Steadying Magic Needle. It was directly related to the tolerance of all the subsequent acupuncture points to be sealed by the silver needles. Therefore, this needle was very, very important. All aspects had to reach a balance point to ensure the smooth progress of the subsequent acupuncture. Yu Marin closed her eyes and muttered something. Then, filled with confidence, she skillfully pierced the first sea-stabilizing needle. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Once everything went smoothly, Yu Marin could solve the problem step by step. Very quickly, Yu Marin entered the state. Every needle was skillful and smooth. According to Su Yun's feedback, she could always make timely adjustments to ensure that Su Yun wouldn't be affected by too much stimulation. The sealing of acupuncture points was controlled by time. Therefore, once everything went smoothly, Yumarin's pressure would naturally lessen. After all, if it couldn't be done within half an hour, the sealing of acupuncture points would be a failure. Previously, no one knew the time limit. Yumarin didn't tell anyone. She didn't want anyone to bear the risk and pressure like her. Only she bore this pressure silently. Now this pressure was finally relieved. She clearly knew that everyone outside was waiting for her to bring them good news. This was her biggest responsibility now. For everyone who loved Su Yun, she must complete the task. Every needle was pierced into Su Yun's acupuncture points through different techniques. The techniques were sometimes kneaded, sometimes firm, sometimes steady, and sometimes probing. Although this acupuncture point sealing didn't require any assistance from internal energy, it still consumed a lot of people's physical strength. When the last needle pierced Su Yun's Tanzhong acupuncture point and ended everything, Yumarin completely collapsed. Phew. She let out a long sigh of relief. The sky seemed to brighten up. Su Yun peacefully lay on the bed. Perhaps he would never know how much Yumarin had sacrificed today. When all the acupuncture points were sealed by the silver needles, he also fell into a state of sealing. Sealing acupuncture points with silver needles was also called as if sealed. This could only be done by masters who were proficient in acupuncture. In the whole of Huaxia, there were very few people who could do this. But now, a young woman was able to do so much for the person she loved. This was also the first time Yumarin had used these silver needles to seal a person's acupuncture points. It was a gamble with her life. But she did it because she was willing to take Su Yun's life on her shoulders. If she didn't do it, then Su Yun wouldn't be able to wait for his last chance. When Yumarin opened the door and revealed a smile on her face, everyone who was guarding the door felt the ice in their hearts melt. They knew that Su Yun could be saved. He'll be fine. Yumarin calmly said, "Trust me." "Of course we trust you." Zuomeyan looked at the weak Yumarin with heartache. She turned to look at Ruan Qingshuang, who was also mentally and physically exhausted. She ordered Lin Gu, "Pigeon, take them home to rest first. I'll be enough to watch over here. You all really need to rest." Knowing that they didn't want to leave, Zuomeyan said, "Su Yun's condition is stable now. After the silver needles sealed his acupuncture points, he's in a state of suspended animation. There's no point in everyone staying here. You all should recover first. Don't tire yourselves out when Su Yun wakes up. That's not worth it. You all should go back and rest. I'll watch over here." Linga said, "If I don't stay by my brother's side, I won't feel at ease." "Why are you so disobedient?" Zuomeyan said, "Do whatever I tell you to do. Hurry up and go." Yumarin shook her head. "No, I can't leave. I still have things to do." After saying that, she walked towards Chen Wei and asked anxiously, "Chief Chen, where's Wen Xiao?" "Yes, the person who was injured and sent here with Su Yun. Is his condition better?" Chapter 1744. Wen Zhao's injury was very serious, but fortunately, it was caused by an external force and not a destructive damage to his meridians. The specialists in the city hospital were still confident that they could save him. Moreover, Chen Wei had also said that this was a very important suspect, so they had to save him with all their might. Under the consultation and research of so many specialists, Wen Zhao's surgery went very smoothly. After the extravasated blood in his body was removed, everything recovered smoothly. The advanced medical equipment was enough to ensure that Wen Xiao would not die. However, he could do nothing but weakly open his eyes with oxygen. Even speaking was very difficult. Yumarin was still very worried about Wen Zhao's injury, because she was the only one among them who knew why Su Yun became like this. If Su Yun did not fight with his inner demon in order to save Wen Zhao's life, it would cause the damage to his meridians. If Wen Xiao did not survive, then all of Su Yun's sacrifices would have been in vain. Yumarin absolutely could not let Wen Xiao die. Now that Su Yun was out of danger, she was only worried about Wen Xiao. If the hospital could not save him, she would definitely solve this problem herself. Don't worry. Don't worry, I won't let that criminal escape. He's already been treated. Just as you were giving Su Yun the acupuncture, the hospital sent news that the surgery went very smoothly. He's now in the intensive care unit for observation and recovery. I've also arranged for someone to guard the door. I'll definitely not give him any chance to escape, Chenwei said. No, he won't escape. Yu Marin shook her head. Moreover, if Wen Zhao's body recovered a little, if he wanted to escape, a few policemen would not be able to stop him. I want to see him. Chief Chen, can I? You. Chenwei hesitated for a moment. Of course you can. However, I have now listed him as a serious criminal. If you go see him, I am worried that you will be in danger. Do you want someone to accompany you? This way, I will be a little more at ease. Lin Gu volunteered and said, I'll go with you. I also want to ask that bastard why he's so lucky. It's better to just let him die. If he meets me in the future, I, Lin Gu, am not a man if I go soft on him. Pigeon. It's not what you think. Yu Marin said, I don't need anyone to accompany me. I can go by myself. Chief Chun, he won't hurt me. If he wanted to hurt me, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the chance to stand in front of you. Don't worry. I'll be fine. That's a madman, are you sure? Zhuo Meiyan was somewhat worried. Chou Yun suddenly stood up. Then I'll go with you. I'll wait for you outside. If anything happens, I'll rush in immediately. He's only just out of danger. I'm afraid he won't have much attack power. Guogua raised a question that the adults did not expect. If Sister Yu went alone, he might not have any reaction. If all of you go, it will make him more vigilant, and he might do something out of line. Guogua is right. I can handle it myself. Yu Marin nodded. Under Chenwei's arrangement, Yu Marin successfully entered Wen Zhao's ICU. Wen Xiao lay motionless on the hospital bed. There was an amphora in his hand, an instrument in his fingers, and an oxygen mask on his face. When he saw Yu Marin, Wen Zhao's body seemed to struggle for a moment. However, it was fleeting and he was completely powerless. Yu Marin read his thoughts and intentions from his gaze. I know what you want to say. Don't get agitated and don't move. I'll tell you slowly. Wen Zhao's gaze calmed down. He tried his best to regulate his breathing. You're out of danger, and he's temporarily saved his life. Yu Marin said. Of course, I can only be sure that this is temporary because I can't think of anyone in the world who can force out the hatred in Su Yun's body with silver needles. I can only wait for this matter. Wen Zhao's eyes showed a hint of melancholy. He could not think of anyone in the world who could do this. However, I believe that since someone said that they can solve all of this, the problem will definitely be solved. Yu Marin continued. So you should focus on recuperating. Since there are some things that you can't help with, don't cause trouble for us. Wen Xiao closed his eyes as if to agree. I don't know what happened between you and Su Yun, and I don't want to know. Yu Marin said calmly. But Su Yun has already used his actions to answer the question you wanted to find after you suddenly appeared. The answer is very clear. He won't give up on you easily, and he won't give up on any of his brothers easily. A tear fell from the corner of Wen Zhao's eye. Wen Xiao really did not know how he should face everything that happened now. He wished that he had died in the sea back then, so that he would not have brought such a big disaster to Su Yun today. You've gotten the answer you wanted. I know what Su Yun is thinking. He didn't give you a chance back then because you betrayed your mission. And now, so many years have passed, and you are no longer a member of the Dragon Fury team. This time, he will hope that you can get away from this matter as soon as possible. Yu Marin said. I don't know when your body will recover, but I want to say, as long as you can move on your own, then go. Wen Zhao's eyes suddenly widened. He shook his head and murmured, No. No matter what you do, I don't have the authority to prescribe or order. I'm just giving you a piece of advice. Yu Marin said, Because this is definitely Su Yun's idea, that's why I came to find you. Otherwise, do you think I have the leisure to care about you? Wen Xiao, I've always been disappointed in you. It's just that Su Yun doesn't want to give up on you, understand? Wen Xiao was stunned. He knew that Yu Marin was telling the truth. He did not expect others to not be disappointed in him. No, using the word disappointed was already giving him face. With his various actions, he was afraid that the people around him had already given up on him. You take care of your injuries. I'm leaving first. Yu Marin said. Leaving is the only thing you can do for Su Yun. Understand? When Yu Marin turned and left, Wen Xiao closed his eyes again. If he wanted to leave without saying goodbye, he only needed half a day to recuperate. It would not be difficult to leave this damn hospital. But now Su Yun's life and death were still unknown. He could not just leave like this. If something happened to Su Yun, even death would not be enough to atone for his sins. He could not leave, really could not leave. Even if he wanted to leave, he had to wait for the news of Su Yun's rescue before leaving. Otherwise, he would not be able to feel at ease for the rest of his life. But was there really anyone in the world who could help Su Yun? Wen Xiao could not think of anyone with such great ability. Few, but he believed that good people would be blessed by the heavens. Su Yun would definitely be able to turn the misfortune into a blessing, because the person who deserved to die should be him. However, just as everything was going on like a raging fire, a pair of eyes in the darkness were watching everything from a short distance away. Chapter 1745. Only Wen Xiao knew what he had experienced in those years in the war-torn countries in Southeast Asia. Behind the endless killings, he had offended too many powerful people. And these people with high positions and power absolutely hated Wen Xiao to the bone. Therefore, Wen Xiao's trip to Huaxia had been watched for a long time. And those who watched him were not ordinary people. In Southeast Asia, there was an armed organization that relied on wars for a long time. The leader of the organization was called Vulture, and the meaning was obvious. His way of making money was to stand on hundreds and thousands of corpses, just like how Vulture liked to feast on corpses. That was why he was called Vulture. Vultures especially liked to eat corpses. The two most famous places in the world, the Sky Burial Platform of Swakai and the Sky Burial Platform of Zhigong Ladder Temple, had many vultures. The so-called Sky Burial was to feed the dead to the vultures. The vultures flew up to the sky after eating, and the Tibetans thought that the dead had successfully ascended to heaven. The sky burial was held in the sky burial ground, and there were fixed locations everywhere. After a person died, the body would be put to rest for a few days, and the lamas would be asked to recite sutras and choose a day to bury him. The funeral was usually held early, and there would be people who would send the body to the sky burial master. The first thing they would do was burn incense and worship the god, and the vultures would gather around the sky burial ground when they saw the smoke. The sky burial master would then strip the body of the clothes and dismember the body according to a certain procedure, and the flesh and bones would be removed. The bones would be crushed with stones and mixed with samba, and the flesh would be cut into small pieces and placed aside. Finally, the vultures would be whistled and fed according to the order of the bones and flesh, until they were completely devoured. Of course, this vulture was not the deity worshipped by the sky burners. He was the leader of an armed organization that was obsessed with killing. Many wars were caused by him, and as long as there was a fight, there would be profits for him. Thus, the price of armed mercenaries was quite high. What Vulture earned was the mercenaries' employment fee. The more wars there were, the more severe the turmoil, and the more benefits he would gain. That was why he needed war. Many wars had been instigated by these masterminds behind the scenes. More importantly, they had the United States behind them, encouraging them and supporting them in starting wars. Wars required weapons. As a military power, the United States certainly hoped that they could participate. First, they could consume some necessary military supplies, and second, they could show the world their powerful military theory. Therefore, under the influence of various factors, the existence of armed organizations became a necessary condition. Over the years, Vulture had been doing very well in Southeast Asia. He had been constantly hiring mercenaries. With his superb military leadership skills, he quickly occupied an unshakable position in this place. He was even known as the ever-victorious general in the mercenary world. However, this ever-victorious general also had times when he stumbled. His first failure was when he faced Wen Zhao's ruthless attack. No matter how good his military tactics were, when faced with an unstoppable opponent like the God of Death, there was nothing he could ask for other than defeat. Ever since Vulture's first failure, he had been recruiting even more crazily, searching for masters from all over the world at high prices. He needed to solidify his position in the Southeast Asian mercenary circle. Only then could he guarantee his worth. Even when there was no war, People who were hired to protect their homes could be asked for a higher price. Therefore, Vulture had to take down this one-eyed man, who had suddenly appeared. And because of Vulture's decision, his status in Southeast Asia plummeted. Ever since One Eye appeared in Southeast Asia, no armed mercenary group had ever won against him. All of them had suffered a crushing defeat. Among these people, Vulture was an exception. It was because he wanted to completely defeat One Eye. That was why he had been defeated by Wen Xiao time and time again. Countless masters had died under Wen Xiao's devilish ruthlessness. At one point, he had become the most dismal armed mercenary group in Southeast Asia. One Eye Wen Xiao had become the pinnacle of his popularity. Vulture, who was unwilling to give up, finally hired a master. He believed that he could definitely take care of Wen Xiao. However, Wen Xiao suddenly went to Huaxia before that peerless expert could arrive. Vulture was not willing to let Wen Xiao escape just like that. He immediately arranged for people to follow him. Today, Vulture received a call and received such earth-shattering good news. Wen Xiao had actually met with such a tough opponent in Huaxia that he was already lying in the hospital, struggling at death's door. Moreover, the police had their eyes on him. It was a miracle that he was still alive. Vulture was extremely shocked by this news. However, he was a suspicious person. Even if it was a trusted subordinate, he would still ponder over it for a while. Therefore, he decided that he had to come to Huaxia personally to take a look. If he really saw One Eye in such a miserable state, he would end his life with his own hands. He would let this person who had caused him to be in such a difficult situation die with hatred. This pair of eyes that had been staring at Wen Xiao for a long time could finally rest. Since his boss was coming, he would definitely not foolishly take the risk to investigate. Who knew if the person who could injure Wen Xiao to such an extent would suddenly come back to life? Wen Xiao, who seemed to have been freed, did not know that a wave of danger was quietly approaching him. At the same time, there were still people on the road. It was a journey of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. Even if Ling Feng and Onan took turns driving, and did not stop for even a minute during the journey except for eating and going to the bathroom, it would still take a full 24 hours to complete the journey. Zhuo Lingyue was not in the mood to listen to their complaints. Ling Feng and Onan were her drivers at the last minute. Although the two of them were extremely unwilling, they really could not refuse. This was especially so for Onan, who could not refuse. Because he came from Kunlun Mountain, he was all too familiar with that place. There was simply no reason for him to refuse. Furthermore, Ling Feng was the self-proclaimed god of racing. With such a long journey and Zhuo Lingyue being in a hurry, he was bound to be the first choice. Empress, is it worth it for that brat? Ling Feng had met Su Yin before. Why can't I see that this brat has half of his father's charm? No, his charisma. Anyway, I don't know how to describe it. It's just that he's definitely not half as good as his father. Onan snorted from the front passenger seat. Is there any man in this world who is half as good as Su Chun? If there is, would the Empress still be so lonely? Shut your beaks. Zhuo Lingyue glared at them. Don't let me hear the two of you talking nonsense again. Drive properly. If you are late, you will suffer. Fine. You don't even allow us to talk. Ling Feng stuck out his tongue. Then let's not talk about it. Haha. Who asked that brat to be Su Chen's son? Otherwise, even if the Empress asked me to be the temporary driver, I might not give her any face. Isn't this nonsense? Onan stretched his body. I will also close my eyes and rest for a while. If you are tired, find a nearby toll booth and stop for me to drive. This journey is quite far, and it is too dangerous to drive when you are tired. Zhuo Lingyue did not care who was the driver. She was only concerned about the time. Once the 3 days were up, if she couldn't bring the person to Su Yin, there was really no hope for Su Yin. Even if this matter had nothing to do with her, since Zhuo Lingyue knew about it, she would be letting Su Chen down if she still couldn't save him. Even if she had to risk everything, she had to drag Su Yin out of the gates of hell. Chapter 1746. Since ancient times, Mount Kunlun has been a mysterious region. Some say it is the lord of all mountains, some say it is the first paradise. The majestic mountain range that stretches for more than 2,500 kilometers is worthy of being called the Huaxia by the world's dragon veins. As for whether this is a place for cultivators to ascend to immortality, it is not something we mortals can understand. There are too many legends about Mount Kunlun. It is said that Mount Kunlun is managed by Lu Wu, who also manages the 9 heavens. Lu Wu has the face of a human, the body of a tiger, the claws of a tiger, and 9 tails. The Tu Wu of the mountain likes to eat people. There is also a quail bird that manages the Yellow Emperor's utensils and clothing. Legend has it that the river originates from here and flows southward, then eastward into Wuda. Red water also originates from here and flows southward into the water of Xitian. Ocean water also originates from Mount Kunlun and flows southward into the water of Cho Tuesday. Blackwater also flows from Mount Kunlun and flows southward into Dawu. Mount Kunlun is also known to be the holy land of the Queen Mother of the West. The Queen Mother of the West owns the Jade Pool, which is used to brew bejeweled nectar. Legend has it that the Yuanshi Tianzuan, the leader of the Church of Chanism, is also located in Mount Kunlun. It is the Yujing Golden Tower that everyone is familiar with. Anyway, all kinds of legends were endless. Even if these legends seemed a little exaggerated in the face of atheism, it had to be said that this place was indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many legends here. And in this Mount Kunlun where all kinds of immortal energy are gathered, there is a place that is rarely known. This place is called Lingrad Canyon, one of the 5 famous death valleys in the world. It is 3,000 to 4,000 meters above sea level. This Lingrad Canyon is definitely a magical place. In the south, Mount Kunlun pierces the sky. In the north, Mount Chilian blocks the cold wind of the northern kingdom. The entire canyon is located in the middle and upper reaches of the Lingrad River. It is surrounded by a barrier of purple and red sandstone. The snow-capped mountains are majestic and varied. The lake is so clear that you can see the bottom. It is definitely a picturesque place. However, this picturesque place has the title of Death Valley. The shepherds living in the Kunlun Mountains would rather let their cattle and sheep starve to death in the Gobi Desert because there was no fat grass to eat, than let them enter the ancient and silent deep valley of the Kunlun Mountains. The Lingrad Gorge was covered with the fur of wolves, the bones of bears, the steel spears of hunters, and the lonely graves of barren hills, conveying a gloomy and frightening aura of death to the world. It was recorded that a herd of horses in a horse farm had strayed into the Lingrad Canyon because they were greedy for the fertilizer in the canyon. The herdsman took the risk to enter the canyon to look for the horses. A few days later, no one appeared, but the horses did. His body was later found on a small hill. His clothes were torn, and his feet were bare. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was wide open. The shotgun was still in his hand, and he looked like he had died with his eyes wide open. What was puzzling was that there were no injuries or signs of an attack on his body. Not long after this incident, another incident occurred in the Lingrad Canyon. A member of the geological team experienced this incident. They were camping in the vicinity of the Lingrad Canyon. Just when the weather was unbearably hot, a snowstorm suddenly fell in the Lingrad Canyon. A thunderous roar accompanied by the snowstorm suddenly appeared, and he fainted on the spot. He only remembered that when he heard the thunderous roar, he suddenly felt his whole body go numb, and his vision turned black. Then he lost consciousness. When the geological team entered the canyon the next day, they were surprised to find that the original yellow soil had turned black, like ashes. All the animals and plants in the Lingrad Canyon had died. Later, after careful investigation, the geological team came to the conclusion that the magnetic anomaly in the Lingrad Canyon was very obvious and widespread. The deeper one went into the canyon, the higher the magnetic anomaly value. Under the effect of the electromagnetic effect, the electric charge in the clouds was affected by the magnetic field of the canyon, causing the clouds to discharge electricity, making the canyon into a lightning zone. One couldn't help but think of cultivators. Many cultivation novels wrote that when a person did something against the natural order, the heavens would punish him or her. For example, if a cultivator went against the natural order and tried to cultivate to become a true immortal with the body of a mortal, the heavens would send down a heavenly tribulation. What was a heavenly tribulation? It was to be struck by lightning. What was a heavenly tribulation of 9 thunders? It meant that if you were struck by lightning once, your strength would increase by 1 level. As the saying goes, if you want to show off, you'll be struck by lightning. It was no wonder that so many cultivators liked the Kunlun Wonderland. It was because the Lingrad Canyon under the Kunlun Mountains was extremely easy to be struck by lightning. Every time you were struck by lightning, your strength would increase by 1 level. This was a bit far-fetched, but the drive from the Guchin Island to the Lingrad Canyon was a distance of nearly 3,000 kilometers. If Ling Feng and Onan hadn't talked about all sorts of things, they probably wouldn't have been as efficient as they were now. Onan, you said that you grew up here. Why didn't you go and cultivate to become an immortal? Maybe if you were struck by lightning once, you would really succeed in transcending the tribulation and become an immortal. This was already the 2nd time Ling Feng had been driving for 8 consecutive hours. Even a man made of iron would feel tired. After all, he had been sitting like this the whole time. Ling Feng was the one driving after leaving the Guchin Island. After driving for 8 hours, he was really too tired, so he let Onan take over for 6 hours. After that, he drove for another 8 hours. They were now about 200 kilometers away from the Kunlun Mountains. Even if they drove at a leisurely pace, they would reach their destination in 2 hours. Onan knew that he was definitely tired. If I were struck by lightning, I don't know if I would become an immortal, but I would definitely be burnt. I can guarantee that. Stop at the next service area. We'll be there soon. You should have a good rest. I'm more familiar with the roads in the Kunlun Mountains than you are. At least you still have a conscience. I really can't take it anymore. Ling Feng twisted his stiff neck. This kind of tiredness was really uncomfortable. Zhuolingyue didn't speak much throughout the journey. She didn't interrupt when the two of them were chatting about various things. After 20 hours of driving, she was also a little tired. Let's take a break later and eat something. I don't think it will be so comfortable after entering the Kunlun Mountains. This is already uncomfortable enough. Ling Feng could only smile bitterly. In this world, there really wasn't another person who could treat him, a dignified war god, as a coolie. Onan, you're familiar with the roads in the Kunlun Mountains. You should prepare well, Zhuolingyue said. I heard that the road to the Lingrad Canyon is more winding. If it really doesn't work, we'll find a local guide. Onan patted his chest and guaranteed, don't worry. With me around, I'll be more professional than the local guides. Besides, there aren't many local guides who dare to go to the Lingrad Canyon. I really don't understand what Mo Wentian is thinking. Finding a minefield to hide himself. Isn't he afraid that his roof will be struck by lightning one day? Onan, after hearing what you said, that Mo Wentian can't be thinking of becoming an immortal, right? I just came to that place. Ling Feng said in a matter-of-fact manner. Let me tell the two of you. When you see Mo Wentian later, don't talk nonsense. Be careful that you don't even know how you died. Zhuolingyue shook her head helplessly. These two fellows really didn't have a filter on their mouths. However, Ling Feng and Onan didn't think much of it. Although this Mo Wentian's strength was indeed profound and unfathomable, after all, he hadn't made a name for himself. Other than his elusive acupuncture technique that could kill a living person and bring a dead person back to life, he really didn't leave any impression on the world. When they were on the highway, Ling Feng even gave Mo Wentian a new nickname, the Acupuncture Prince. However, after hearing what Zhuolingyue said, he really didn't dare to call Mo Wentian that way. If he angered Mo Wentian, and this fellow refused to come out of seclusion, the Empress would put the blame on him. He really wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Chapter 1747. What kind of person was this Mo Wentian? One had to trace back to a very long time ago, when Zhuolingyue's first awakening of love was in Su Chen's embrace. Mo Wentian could be considered one of Zhuolingyue's most obsessed pursuers. Moreover, he was the one who was willing to risk his life to pursue her. He was famous in the underground world for not caring about his own life. Even though everyone knew that Zhuolingyue had become Su Chen's woman, Mo Wentian still dared to approach her recklessly. Everyone said that if it wasn't for Su Chen's magnanimity, he would have died many times over. However, although Su Chen didn't do anything to Mo Wentian, this guy really tortured himself. He almost lived a life worse than death every day. Su Chen and Zhuo Lingyue were regarded as a golden couple by the underground world. However, Mo Wentian's daily words were, "How could such a good cabbage be taken by that guy?" He was unconvinced, extremely unconvinced. Many times he wanted to challenge Su Chen, but he was very clear about his own capabilities. With his capabilities at that time, he was afraid that he wasn't even fit to carry Su Chen's shoes. Other than knowing some medical skills, being famous for his acupuncture and moxibustion, and being called a little immortal who could bring the dead back to life by using silver needles, he didn't have anything else to show for it. What about Su Chen? His name was really too famous. No matter where it was, as long as Su Chen's name was brought out, it would definitely shake the world. Even Mo Wentian was remembered by many people. Why? Because the underground world's people would point at him behind his back and say, "This is the guy who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and snatched Su Chen's woman. He doesn't even know his own capabilities. He really overestimates himself." Because of this, Mo Wentian, the little miracle doctor, even fell into a deep mental illness for a period of time. Therefore, he really hated Su Chen to the core. After that, when Su Chen and Zhuo Lingyue were together every day, Mo Wentian simply found a place to hide. Although it was said to be hidden in the city, he felt that it was better to hide in a remote place to cultivate his mind. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 years had passed. However, Mo Wentian still couldn't walk out of his one-sided love. For so many years, he had never touched a woman. It was not because of his sexual orientation, but because it was hard for him to compare Zhuo Lingyue with ordinary people. Even if he lived in seclusion in such a place, there would still be people who would come to visit him and ask him to treat some difficult and complicated diseases with acupuncture. Of course, those who could find him were all experts in the underground world. Mo Wentian would not refuse, but there were conditions for him to help. He did not charge a high price, nor did he make things difficult for him. He was just exchanging one thing for another. If Mo Wentian had something he wanted to deal with, he would let the person he had saved do it for him. If he was really fine at this time and you came looking for him, even if you gave him 100 million yuan, he would definitely not save him. Everyone said that he became like this because of the disease that was left in his brain back then. Zhuo Lingyue had naturally heard of these rumors. She was also very conflicted about what kind of answer she would get if she came to beg Mo Wentian. However, she really had no other way. In this world, the only person who could save people with acupuncture was probably Mo Wentian. Moreover, Zhuo Lingyue had already asked Yumarin to seal Su Yun's acupoints with silver needles. After sealing the acupoints with silver needles for no reason, if the unstable meridian's power in the body could not be eliminated in time, the sealed acupoints would be severely impacted when the needles were removed. This was also not a problem that could be solved by ordinary people's methods. Zhuo Lingyue had heard that after sealing the acupoints with silver needles, if one could perform acupuncture in the opposite direction according to the meridians of the human body, it could eliminate all the evil qi in the body. This was the safest, most effective, and most advanced method to ensure the safety of the person being treated. And the only person in this world who had this ability was Mo Wentian. Zhuo Lingyue did not have a second choice. She could only come to Kunlun Mountain, which had always been known as the Death Valley, in an attempt to seek Mo Wentian's help. Mo Wentian had not asked about the matters of the underground world for so many years. His life was so leisurely. There were many advantages for him to choose Lingrad Canyon as his residence. First, it would not be easy for people to visit and disturb him. After all, everyone was afraid of death. Therefore, anyone who came to visit him would definitely be in a hurry. At this time, the conditions he put forward would usually be accepted by the visitor smoothly. Mo Wentian did not like to waste time. He was a straightforward person. Therefore, he felt that this was very comfortable and suitable for him. The second was that he had found a very wonderful pleasure in the Pringle Canyon, which was to drink thunder. On the house that Mo Wentian lived in, there were many lightning pins. Some were used to generate electricity, Some were used to generate heat, and some were used to neutralize the lightning. There were all kinds of them, and there were all kinds of strange things. Therefore, in the place where Imowention lived, everything could be solved with thunder and lightning. Solar energy and wind energy were weak in a place like Pringle Canyon. In a place like Lingrad Canyon, if one wanted to live, they had to use thunder and lightning as a new energy source. Today's weather was very good. As usual, Imowention washed his face with hot water that could be boiled by thunder and lightning. Then he brewed a cup of strong coffee, and sat on the wooden armchair in his courtyard. He held a thick and heavy book of meridians and acupoints, studying it in circles and dots. As the saying goes, the longer you live, the more you learn. Imowention was quite satisfied with his life. However, he still hoped to achieve a greater breakthrough and feat in his lifetime. In terms of the interconnection of acupoints, he hoped to have a breakthrough of his own. Therefore, he would study this book of meridians and acupoints every day. Today was destined to be the most turbulent day for Imowention, because in his life, Zhuolingyue had never personally visited him once. This was the first time this had ever happened. When the door of the courtyard was knocked, Imowention said impatiently, "It's not locked. Open it yourself." The moment Zhuolingyue appeared in the next second, Imowention could no longer remain calm. He almost fell off his favorite wooden armchair. Zhuolingyue surveyed her surroundings and didn't say anything. Behind her, Onan was bragging to Ling Feng about how powerful he was. He had found the way to Lingrad Canyon with just one look. Imowention rubbed his eyes hard. Could it be that the thunder and lightning had struck his head just now? Did he hallucinate? "Why, am I not welcome?" Zhuolingyue finally spoke her first sentence. Imowention's heartbeat accelerated rapidly. It was still the same voice. It was so pleasant to the ears. Lung, Lingying, you. Why are you here? You still have the habit of stuttering when you're nervous? Zhuolingyue shook her head helplessly. When you're free, you should also insert some needles into your tongue. Who knows, it might be able to cure your big tongue. Imowention wasn't a stutterer. Usually he didn't stutter at all when he spoke. He could even be considered to have iron teeth. However, whenever he faced Zhuolingyue, he would stutter. He didn't know why, but it was just a stutter. There was no way to change it. He had been like this when he was young. He didn't expect that it would still be the same after more than 20 years. Even Imowention didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was really useless. However, this wasn't the main point. The main point was, why would Zhuolingyue appear here? This was the Great Western region, the Lingrad Canyon of the Kunlun Mountains. It was a desolate place. Why would Zhuolingyue come here to look for him? This couldn't even be described as being overwhelmed by favor. Imowention simply couldn't think of any reason. Ling Feng and Onan greeted Imowention one after another. Then they retreated to the side. Zhuolingyue and Imowention had to settle the matters here. Their relationship when they were young was quite complicated. Ling Feng and Onan knew that it was better to leave for a while. Chapter 1748. You haven't told me. Why are you looking for me? What do you need my help with? Imowention tried his best to suppress his agitated emotions. However, when facing Zhuolingyue, he would always feel a tinge of nervousness. This was a problem that no one could solve. If he could really insert 2 needles into his tongue, he would have done it long ago. Just as they were talking, Imowention took out a silver needle and silently inserted it into a certain acupuncture point on the back of his hand. He knew that this acupuncture point had the effect of eliminating nervousness. However, regardless of whether this acupuncture was effective or if it had some psychological effect, his stuttering was much better than before. It seems like everyone has the same idea now. If there is nothing, you won't easily visit an old friend. Zhuolingyue smiled slightly. Phew, it has been 20 years in a flash. You still don't seem to have changed much. Why? Could it be that acupuncture can beautify and nourish your skin? A little. There is a little effect. Imowention smiled faintly. He didn't know what Zhuolingyue meant by this, but he felt that it was meant for him. That's right. Actually, old friends, Between friends, if there is nothing, we should also visit each other. Ha ha ha. Time passes too quickly. Zhuo Lengyue shook her head helplessly. However, as time passes, there will be more and more things around a person. Not many people can abandon everything like you and live in seclusion, living a carefree, simple and happy life. We are all people who are controlled by the shackles of life. Mo Wentian was stunned. He really wanted to say that he also wished to be controlled by the shackles of life. However, he couldn't obtain his own happiness, so he chose to live in seclusion. This leisurely life seemed to be carefree, but the real simple happiness was always a little lacking. Most people had regrets in their lives. No one could make up for this. The world was so big, how could there not be any regrets? However, these regrets couldn't be made up for no matter how hard one tried. Regrets were regrets. What was missed and what could not be made up for was called a regret. I indeed have something to ask of you, Zhuo Lengyue said faintly. Zhuo Lengyue said indifferently, I just don't know if you'll still treat me, this old friend, as a friend after so many years. If you think I'm being presumptuous, you can follow your own rules. After pausing for a moment, Zhuo Lengyue continued, I've heard that if I want you to save someone, I'll have to agree to do something for you. Am I right? You want me to help save them? Mo Wentian was stunned. Lengyue, you asked me to help. I will definitely help. Qian, please don't be so courteous. No matter how much time has passed, I will always treat you as a friend really. But if you help me like this, won't you break your rules? Zhuo Lengyue asked. Mo Wentian patted his chest and said, I set the rules myself rules. If I say so, then so be it. There was no such thing as breaking the rules. There was no such thing as breaking the rules. My rules, I make my own decisions. Hearing Mo Wentian agree so readily, Ling Feng and Onan were rather surprised. Although Mo Wentian lived in seclusion here, there were many legends about him. Just a while ago, the leader of the New North Association, Gong Kong, went mad while practicing martial arts. His meridians were messed up, and he needed someone to perform acupuncture. The New North Association was so rich and powerful, so naturally, they thought of asking Mo Wentian to treat him. However, Mo Wentian rejected them with a single sentence. He definitely wouldn't leave this place. If they wanted acupuncture, they could come. Moreover, he wanted to build a school in a small town called Migagong near Death Valley where he lived. He wanted to hire a few teachers for the children in this town. He would only do it if they agreed to this condition. When he went to this small town to purchase things, he heard a few children talking about their yearning for knowledge. Hence, he had this condition. Originally, the New North Association thought that they could rely on their wealth and power to make Mo Wentian break the rules. However, Mo Wentian rejected them with a single sentence. He also told them that if they were unhappy, they could come to this valley to look for him at any time. The prerequisite was that they were not afraid of being struck to death by lightning. Many people knew about the Lingrad Canyon. It was known as Death Valley. Mo Wentian could live in it for so long without any accidents. Clearly, it was a myth that people had spread. Even the New North Association didn't dare to do anything out of the ordinary. In the end, the New North Association built a school in Migagong town. They even hired teachers at a high price and signed a contract to teach for a certain number of years. In the end, Gong Kong also lived in this small town. Mo Wentian came to give him acupuncture and adjusted his chaotic meridians that had already gone mad. He also ensured that his skills were not wasted. After that, Gong Kong simply worshipped Mo Wentian with gratitude. Today, Zhuo Lengyue only needed to say a few words to settle such a big shot who was so difficult to invite. The Great Empress was indeed the Great Empress. Her face was really indescribable. Ling Feng and Onan stretched. Since it was settled, they prepared to leave. Although they were already tired from driving, time waits for no man. They had to rush back immediately to solve Su Yun's problem. The person you want to save. What's the situation? Mo Wentian was still very concerned about Zhuo Lingyue's matter. It's because of the outbreak of the inner demon that forced him to use his mental strength to suppress it, causing the meridians in his body to be completely messed up, Zhuo Lingyue said. Emo Wentian stared. This is also a big problem. If there are no timely measures, even if I go, it will be meaningless. I have already asked someone to use silver needles to seal the 108 important acupuncture points in his body, Zhuolingyue said. The person who applied the needles is also an acupuncture expert. However, she is still a little inferior to you. She has no way to use acupuncture to resolve the qi of hatred in his body. So, I need you to help me. If you don't help me, this child can't be saved. Emo Wentian was quite surprised. It was already not easy to find someone to use silver needles to seal the acupuncture points. Indeed, this had bought him some time. If there was no problem with the silver needles sealing the acupuncture points, as long as there was enough time, he could really bring this person back to life. Who is he? Emo Wentian was very curious. What kind of person could make Zhuolingyue so concerned that she would travel so far to find him? Su Yun, Zhuolingyue said indifferently. She knew Emo Wentian would ask, and she didn't intend to hide it from him. Su Yun? Emo Wentian was stunned. Why did it sound so familiar? Wait a minute. Emo Wentian's eyes opened wider and wider. He suddenly stopped stuttering and jumped up directly. Could it be that this Su Yun is Su Chen's son? Zhuolingyue nodded. That's right. He is the child of Su Chen and that woman. Emo Wentian felt a wave of depression in his heart. Why? Why did he have to save Su Chen's son? One had to know how much he hated Su Chen 20 years ago. Moreover, what Emo Wentian couldn't understand was that this brat was the child of Su Chen and another woman. Now Zhuolingyue was actually begging him for this brat? Why? Emo Wentian couldn't understand. He really couldn't understand. He really couldn't understand what kind of magic this Su Chen had. He had been in the Mardi Franz Islands prison for serious criminals for so many years, yet he could still influence Zhuolingyue's every move. This damned brat. Emo Wentian had been recuperating for so many years, but at this moment, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Ling Feng and Onen really couldn't understand. Why did the Empress tell Emo Wentian about Su Yun's identity? She didn't even think about how much Emo Wentian hated Su Yun back then. Now that she had told Emo Wentian about Su Yun's identity, wasn't she asking for Su Chen's life? Chapter 1749. Is there a need for a reason? Zhuolingyue frowned. Moreover, you should be clear about the reason why I am willing to help you. I don't need to say more, do I? I only need one word from you. Are you going to save him or not? You have to give me a straightforward answer. I don't have that much time to wait for you. Emo Wentian's heart was in a dilemma. He had once again experienced the feeling of living a life worse than death. Su Chen, you are a fellow trapped in the lowest level of the Mardi Franz Island serious criminals prison. How could you let Zhuolingyue help you take care of such a disappointing son? This was simply too unreasonable. He had contributed his whole life silently. He didn't care if he didn't get anything in return. However, why was Su Chen able to make Zhuolingyue so willing to do so for him? What exactly did he have that attracted Zhuolingyue so much? Was this a question that Emo Wentian couldn't get rid of in this lifetime? Lung Yu. After Emo Wentian's nervousness disappeared, his enunciation became much clearer. You came all the way here, which means that you are very clear in your heart that in this world, only I can save him. If the acupuncture point is sealed with silver needles, it will bring greater harm to the person. I am already amazed that someone can seal acupuncture points with silver needles. However, I dare to guarantee that the person who used the needles will definitely not be able to remove the seal perfectly. Zhuolingyue nodded. Of course I know. If I didn't know what you said, I wouldn't have come here to look for you. However, you know my temper. If you don't want to save him, I won't force you either. I, Zhuolingyue, have always believed that there is always a way out. You should understand me. Emo Wentian frowned. But now this is a dead end. Other than me, no one else can help you. That depends on whether you help me or not. If you help me, this road will not be a dead end. If you don't help me, then I can only resign myself to fate and seek help from others. However, I, Zhuolingyue, will not let anyone use anything to restrain me. Zhuolingyue said indifferently. If you feel that I can help you with something, then say it. As long as I can do it, I have a precondition. Let me warn you first. I hate it when people threaten me. How can I threaten you? Mo Wentian said anxiously. How can I use other things to exchange for your matter? But the problem was that this person was Su Chen's son. Between Su Chen and I, no one knows better than you. What happened between you and Su Chen? Zhuo Lingyue asked. Did he rob or steal something from you? Or did he do anything wrong to you? Mo Wentian, Su Chen has been open and aboveboard all his life. He dares to boast that he has never done anything to let anyone down. I will repeat these words to you today. Mo Wentian had really been checkmated. He couldn't say a single word. Indeed, Su Chen had never done anything to let him down. However, the matter between Su Chen and Zhuo Lingyue was the most painful thing in Mo Wentian's life. What happened between me and Su Chen was something I was willing to do. Su Chen has never forced me to do anything. Zhuo Lingyue continued. My love for him is my own feelings. I don't need your understanding. So what if he's a married man? I don't care if he's using me or has feelings for me. But I believe that when he's with me, he treats me with sincerity. That's enough. Mo Wentian, feelings can't be forced. No one can force it. Mo Wentian lowered his head silently. He was vexed, extremely vexed, but he had nothing to say in response. Whether you admit it or not, I want to say that if you don't save him, it can only be because of your jealousy. It is because you can't face yourself. It is because you can't face yourself and not us. Zhuo Lingyue exhaled. I know what you are thinking. I also understand why you feel sad. But many things are up to fate. You can't force it. Mo Wentian sat down without saying a word. He was thinking whether he should save him or not. If he saved him, he would feel awkward in his heart. But Zhuo Lingyue was right. It was his jealousy. Su Chen had never done anything to let him down. And if he didn't save him, he would most likely be blacklisted in Zhuo Lingyue's eyes. With Zhuo Lingyue's temper, it was absolutely impossible for her to ask for help. It was already not easy for her to swallow her pride and look for him this time. Now, if he didn't give Zhuo Lingyue a face, their relationship would most likely be completely severed. Because of his relationship with Zhuo Lingyue, Mo Wen really needed time to think it over properly. But Zhuo Lingyue didn't give him the time. He also knew that the acupuncture needles had to be removed within 3 days. Otherwise, this person would be crippled. But after all, this brat was Su Chen's seed. Why should he save Su Chen's seed? There was no reason for him to convince himself. Just as Mo Wentian was immersed in his own questions and answers, Zhuo Lingyue nonchalantly said, Forget it, I'd better look for someone else. Zhuo Lingyue never liked to joke. Every word was a nail. No one's words were effective. This was an absolute principle. Seeing that Zhuo Lingyue was about to turn and leave, even Ling Feng and Onan were anxious. They had traveled 3,000 kilometers. Didn't they come here to bring back the person who had saved their life? If they left just like that, it would really mean that all their efforts would be in vain. Mo Wentian was right in front of them. Could it be that Zhuo Lingyue would really give up just like that? Go and get the car. I don't want to stay in this place for even a minute, Zhuo Lingyue said coldly to Onan. Onan didn't dare to go against the Empress's wishes. He immediately nodded and walked in the direction of the car. Lingyue, can you give me some time to think about it? Will this matter also allow me to overcome the hurdle in my heart? Only Mo Wentian himself knew how much he was struggling in his heart now. I said that I don't have so much time to waste. Zhuo Lingyue said nonchalantly. I also said that I am a person who believes that there is always a way out. If I can't get an answer from you, I will naturally look for a new solution. What else can I do? Hang myself on a tree? After saying this, Zhuo Lingyue strode out of the courtyard. Ling Feng also knew that he couldn't stop the Empress no matter what he said, so he could only follow behind. Mo Wentian was furious. More than 20 years had passed. Why did Zhuo Lingyue still have the temper of a young lady? She would fall out with him whenever she wanted. As long as she said something, he had to do it. This temper, but he, Mo Wentian, just couldn't tame her. Other than Su Chen, that bastard, who could tame her, there wasn't a second man in this world who could. Mo Tian wished he could give himself 2 slaps on the head to wake himself up. I'll go. I'll go. Who said I'm not going? But can you give me a few minutes to think about what I need to bring? Aya. You are really my great-aunt. I'm convinced. I'm sincerely convinced. I admit defeat. Just give me a few minutes to pack my things. After all, I haven't been out for so many years. I'll give you 3 minutes to prepare your silver needles. I won't wait for you after that. Although Zhuolingyue's voice was cold, there was still a victorious smile on her face. She knew that Su Yin could be saved this time. Mo Tian, I don't want to owe you a favor. You'd better quickly think of what you need me to do for you. No matter what it is, just wait for me to save him first. Mo Tian shook his head helplessly and went to prepare his silver needles. If you really want me to say it now, I can only say that if I can't save him, just don't let me die with him. I'm someone of the same generation as this brat's father. Zhuolingyue turned around and glared at him. Do you not want to talk anymore with this crow's mouth of yours? You're not as likable as when your tongue is bigger. Mo Tian immediately stopped talking and quickly went to prepare the small box that he regarded as a treasure. After getting on the bus, he knew that they were going to Qingdao. This was a journey of almost 3,000 kilometers. It would definitely be a bumpy day and night. Chapter 1750. The people of Qingdao were anxiously waiting for Zhuolingyue's news. The moment Mo Tian got into the car, Zhuolingyue dialed her daughter's number. Xiaoye, give me another 24 hours and I will bring back the person who can save Su Yin. Let everyone be at ease. The encouragement of this phone call to everyone was imaginable. Yu Marin's efforts were not in vain. Everything she had done was acknowledged and was meaningful. Everyone was looking forward to the expert's arrival, to turn Su Yin back into the lively fellow he once was. After Zhuolingyue hung up the phone, Mo Tian's expression was not particularly good as he asked plainly, Your daughter? Xiaoye? Zhuolingyue didn't think much and nodded. Yes, my daughter. But her name is Bai Xiaoye. Don't give my daughter a random name. Mo Tian exclaimed and almost jumped up in the car. He stared at Zhuolingyue in shock. Bai Xiaoye? Isn't she your and Su Chen's daughter? Don't tell me you. Mo Tian, do you want to die? Zhuolingyue said with a sullen face. Don't think that you can talk nonsense in front of me just because I need you now. Mo Tian didn't dare to utter another word after being reprimanded by Zhuolingyue. He asked tentatively. Then this, why is it Bai? When I was pregnant with her, her father's position was blank. Can't her surname be Bai? Who stipulated that children must follow their parents' surname? Why can't it be changed? Zhuolingyue glared at Mo Tian unhappily. This guy was really too senseless. Why was he so curious? So that's the case. Mo Tian agreed after hearing this. Yes, with such an unreliable father, she shouldn't know. It's good to have the surname Bai. It's good to have the surname Bai. Mo Tian. Are you trying to find something to talk about? Zhuolingyue snorted. If you can't keep your mouth shut, then talk about your own matters. It's fine if my daughter's surname is Su. You can't control it. Mo Tian smiled awkwardly. I know. This surname has nothing to do with blood relations. It's a kind of social inheritance. When a matriarchal society began, children would probably take their mother's name. Later, the production tools were improved, and the role of men became more and more important. Families began to be dominated by men, and it became a patrilineal society. That's why I took my father's surname. Are you going to give me a history lesson? Zhuolingyue was really speechless. Mo Tian was good at everything, but he just didn't know how to chat. Can you tell me more about the origin of the human surname? Now that you mention it, I have done some research on it, Mo Tian said. Back in the primitive clans of the ancient age, people already had surnames. At that time, the social clans were matriarchal, and the emperors took their daughters as their surnames. For example, Shennong's surname was Jiang, the Yellow Emperor's surname was Ji, and Yushuan's surname was Yao. Later on, there were all kinds of surnames. Some took their ancestors' clan name as their surname. For example, some of the descendants of Yao were surnamed Tang. and some surnames like Xia, In, and Zhou were roughly the same. There were also some who took their king's surname. In the Zhou dynasty, there were King Wen, King Wu, and then there were people with surnames of Wen and Wu. Then, listening to Mo Wentian's rambling behind, even Ling Feng and Onan were speechless. Who would have thought that once this fellow stopped stuttering, he would immediately become a chatterbox? Moreover, he really knew everything from the heavens to the earth. He knew everything and could talk about anything. This historical research was so thorough that it would be a pity if he didn't become a professor in the Department of History in Yenjing University or Huaqing University. Mo Wentian, have you ever thought of changing your way of life? Zhuo Lingyue wasn't interested in this history. She directly interrupted Mo Wentian's words. Have you ever thought of not coming back to this place? Not coming back? Mo Wentian was stunned. If I don't come back then where will I go? Zhuo Lingyue shrugged her shoulders. There are too many places you can go. I recommend you to be a substitute professor in a university. Just teaching history, you are definitely better than any other history teacher. In a few years' time, there will be a legend about you in society. Who has better historical knowledge? I can't possibly go to Kunlun Mountain to find you. Mo Wentian, right? Onan almost laughed out loud while driving. Ling Feng also joined in and joked. That's right. You are so good at history. You should go to Lanxiang Technical School to teach history. You will definitely teach all the students to grade 8 in history. History is divided into grades now. What is Lanxiang Technical School? Mo Wentian, who had lived in seclusion for many years, naturally didn't know about this famous Lanxiang. Don't listen to their nonsense. Zhuo Lingyue knew that the two people in front didn't have anything good to say. There is no such thing as grades. Onan didn't want to give up this opportunity to ridicule. Why not? Of course. But don't go to Lanxiang now. Haven't you heard of this? A handsome lad went to Lanxiang to learn how to excavate. He learned all the way to grade 8 in one go. This is even harder than learning a foreign language. However, when he was successful in his studies, his girlfriend actually ran away with a chef from the New West. Zhuo Lingyue was speechless. Can the two of you be a little more serious? Don't talk nonsense with me. I am talking about serious matters. Knowing that he was being ridiculed, Mo Wentian didn't respond to the two guys in front. He was silent for a while and asked Zhuo Lingyue, is it really possible for me to teach history? This guy really dug a hole for himself to jump into. Zhuo Lingyue directly turned her head and didn't speak anymore. However, Ling Feng and Onan used this point to trick Mo Wentian again. Mo Wentian suddenly felt that he was really out of touch with society. After so many years, he had a better understanding of acupuncture, but he had fallen behind society by so much. No wonder people said that geniuses in certain fields were often idiots in other fields. People who knew a little about everything could never be a professional. Only people who were obsessed with one thing could be a professional. On the way back to Guqin Island, there was an additional Mo Wentian. Along the way, there was no lack of laughter. Mo Wentian's curiosity about the current society was rather strong. He suddenly regretted that he had actually lived in seclusion for so many years and didn't leave that valley. The difference between the current world and 20 years ago was really too big. Although he had come into contact with some of the current society in the small town nearby, after all, that kind of remote place couldn't be compared to the big cities along the southeast coast. All the changes in society had caused a huge change in Mo Wentian's heart. Suddenly, there was a moment where he really didn't want to go back. Ling Feng and Onan took turns to drive the car. Along the way, Mo Wentian had many regrets. This was because he wanted to know what the places he passed by and the things he saw were. He wanted to take a closer look and ask about them. Hence, during this 3,000-kilometer journey, Mo Wentian made an important decision. He decided that after he had settled this matter, he would travel around the country to see what the world had become. He wanted to see how rich and colorful the world was now. Of course, he didn't tell anyone about this decision. He was afraid that the two guys in front of him would laugh at him. He wanted to tell Zhuo Lingyue about this great idea after he had solved this matter smoothly. As they got closer to Guqin Island, Zhuo Lingyue's originally calm heart actually started to become more and more nervous. She was obviously a little afraid. afraid that Mo Wentian could really solve all this smoothly. After all, Su Yun's situation was very special. If Mo Wentian couldn't solve it, wouldn't she be sending Su Yun to his grave with her own hands? Thinking of this, Zhuo Lingyue couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. She had never been so nervous before. Now, for the sake of Su Yun's life, she was actually so nervous that her palms were sweating. Chapter 1751. With Mo Wentian's reputation in the acupuncture field, his appearance naturally made Yu Marin feel a little incredulous. One had to know that this person was already known as the god of acupuncture when she was born. His silver needles could appear and disappear unpredictably. He could kill and save people at the same time. He was definitely an incredible representative figure. However, the fact that he had lived in seclusion for so many years was also a pity to many people. Yu Marin really did not expect Mo Wentian to actually appear personally. It seemed like this empress was indeed worthy of being called the empress. Her face was probably unmatched in this world. This was already the second day and 8 hours after Su Yun's acupuncture. Mo Wentian specifically understood from Yu Marin the details of Su Yun's reactions when she helped Su Yun perform acupuncture. Then he nodded repeatedly and placed 2 fingers on Su Yun's pulse. Obviously, Mo Wentian would not act rashly before he understood the condition of Su Yun's body. At this time, if he was not careful, all his efforts would be in vain. Just these 2 days of torment had already made the person in charge of the municipal hospital unable to bear it. If it were not for Chen Wei's face, they were afraid that they would have been chased out. It was not to say that the famous specialists in the municipal hospital did not have the heart to save the dying and heal the injured. It was also not to say that they did not understand what a doctor's heart meant. But now, they really wanted to see these people make a fool of themselves. Sometimes people could change some things because of their own efforts. However, if something like life could be changed, then it was really defying the natural order of things. There were too many things in the world that could be reversed, but the natural order of things could not be reversed. The dead could not be brought back to life. This was the scientific theory of doctors and specialists. Now Su Yun was already a dead person in their eyes. After all, this so-called acupuncture with silver needles was really messed up in their eyes. A person who was originally determined to be hopeless by the advanced instruments could actually enter a state of suspended animation with a few silver needles? Even the Chinese medicine specialists in the municipal hospital kept shaking their heads and saying that it was impossible. They did not dare to believe that there was such a magical acupuncture method in this world. If they could really save Su Yun, it would definitely be explosive news. However, even under such immense pressure, Mo Wentian still calmly said, "This brat can still be saved." This sentence became a stabilizing force for Yu Marin and everyone else. However, it also became a big joke in the eyes of all the specialists in the municipal hospital. Mo Wentian stayed alone in Su Yun's room. No one knew what he had done to Su Yun. However, after 5 hours he woke up. Shocking. Mo Wentian was left with only shock. Perhaps only a freak like him could do such a heaven-defying act, right? Under the guidance of Mo Wentian's silver needles, Su Yun, who only had a sliver of breath left, gradually disappeared from his body. Even Su Yun himself could not believe that he was still alive after he woke up. Su Yun only remembered that the moment before he fainted, it was as if a huge nuclear explosion had occurred in his body. Of course, although Su Yun woke up, he still needed to recuperate and adjust his breath. It was impossible for him to recover his bodily functions in a short period of time. He needed to recuperate. With Mo Wentian and Yu Marin around, Zhuo Lingyue also made a decision to not stay in the hospital. In her words, the specialists in the hospital could not be of any help. Su Yun was discharged from the hospital, but Wen Xiao was still in the ward. Although Wen Xiao's condition was not optimistic, at least his life was not in danger. However, he had been relying on the power of his inner demon for a long time. After the inner demon was completely destroyed from the bottom of his heart, he was like a cramped dragon. He was better off dead than alive. Faced with such a situation, Su Yun really hoped that Mo Wentian could help him. If Wen Xiao was to be a cripple for the rest of his life, he would rather be killed. However, Mo Wentian had already given Zhuolingyue a lot of face by saving Su Yun. As for Su Yun's request, he really did not want to bother with it. Su Yun did not get a response from Mo Wentian several times, so he could roughly understand Mo Wentian's intention. Zhuolingyue was not a kind person. She could travel thousands of kilometers for Su Yun's life, because Su Yun was the continuation of that man's life. Su Yun also had all the charm of that man. No matter what, Su Yun would still call her little mom according to the seniority in the family. Moreover, she owed Su Yun a favor. If it was not for Su Yun's appearance, she would not be able to get along with Bai Xiaoye as a mother. If it was not for Su Yun's guidance and comfort, Bai Xiaoye would not be able to get along with her so harmoniously. Therefore, Zhuolingyue did not hold back when it came to Su Yun. As for someone who was completely unrelated to her, she would not ask Mo Wentian for help. This was Zhuolingyue. She was a woman that no one could understand except for herself. Even so, Su Yun, who was able to get out of bed after 3 days, still decided to make a final request. He could not give up on Wen Xiao. He wanted to save him. After Mo Wentian took Su Yun's pulse again, Su Yun found an opportunity to speak. Uncle Mo, I don't say any more. However, Mo Wentian seemed to have already known what Su Yun was going to say. He immediately rejected him. I know what you want to say. I don't have so much energy and effort to take care of so many people's matters. Therefore, if you want to help someone, you'd better ask for someone else's help. I know. It's indeed not suitable for me to ask for your help. Although Mo Wentian's attitude towards Su Yun was very cold, after all, he was Su Yun's savior. Su Yun naturally had to respect him. I'm not asking for your help. I just want you to take a look. If there's any way to save someone, please let me know. Mo Wentian snorted. The guy you're talking about, his situation is as bad as yours. Even if I don't go, I'll know. However, with his situation, it's not that I'm unwilling to help. It's just that even if I do, there's no way I can help him. My acupuncture can bring the dead back to life, but it can't turn waste into treasure. Do you understand what I mean? Hearing Mo Wentian speak so bluntly, Su Yun felt rather awkward. However, after thinking about it carefully, Mo Wentian's words were not without reason. However, Su Yun's gaze still unconsciously landed on Zhuolingyue. Perhaps at this moment, only Zhuolingyue's words could change the stone-hearted Mo Wentian's mind. In order to urge Mo Wentian to provide better care for Su Yun, Zhuolingyue had not left. Upon hearing this, she also pointed the spearhead at Su Yun. You'd better take care of yourself first. Don't think about others for everything. If it wasn't for that bastard, you wouldn't have ended up in this state. It's already good enough that I didn't find trouble with him. Yu Marin's thoughts were all on Su Yun. She really didn't have time to think about Wen Xiao. She had already contacted the brigade about what had happened here. As for Wan Guangxiao, after knowing that Zhuolingyue was present, it wasn't convenient for him to do anything. Therefore, he gave Yu Marin and Guogua sufficient time to confirm that Su Yun's body had recovered before returning. Wan Guangxiao was still very concerned about Su Yun's situation. However, he was also concerned about Wen Xiao. If Wen Xiao hadn't taken the wrong path, he might have already become a dragon among men. However, he was more or less worried about Wen Xiao now. As for how to intervene in this matter, Wan Guangxiao didn't have any ideas at the moment. However, he believed that Su Yun should be able to handle this situation well. Wen Xiao was his brother and they had gone through life and death together. This relationship wasn't something that a head captain like him could replace. Wan Guangxiao believed that Su Yun would definitely be able to handle this problem. He only needed to provide a little support behind the scenes. Wan Guangxiao looked for Wang Yi to discuss this matter. They had to do a good job of supporting and ensuring that Su Yun, Yu Marin, and Guogua wouldn't be threatened by Wen Xiao. Moreover, they had to give Wen Xiao ample opportunity to repent. Otherwise, Su Yun's efforts would be in vain. Chapter 1752. Wen Xiao, who was in the hospital, had been thinking about a question for the past few days. Should he choose to leave quietly? Although it would be a pity if he left just like that, he would feel sorry for Su Yun. However, other than bringing trouble to Su Yun, What else could he bring to Soo-yun if he stayed? Nothing good. He had also heard from Yu-marin that Soo-yun's body was gradually recovering. Soo-yun's situation was different from Wen Zhao's. Wen Zhao's injury had basically turned him into a cripple. However, Soo-yun, under Mo Wen-tion's magical needles, had only expelled the violent aura in his body and dissolved the power of his inner demons. However, Soo-yun's own cultivation was not affected at all. No one in the world would wish to become a cripple. Even if there was a slim chance of survival, as a martial arts expert, they would try their best to preserve their own abilities. Wen Zhao was also a layman. He was not so open-minded. However, as long as there was a chance, he would still have hope. Now he could accept all these facts because he really could not see any chance for himself. Under Soo-yun's request, Yu-marin would go to the hospital every day to check on Wen Zhao's condition. Now his body was not strong enough to leave the hospital, so Chen Wei still arranged for the police to stay in the hospital. Obviously, with Wen Zhao's current physical condition, 2 normal police officers would be able to keep an eye on him. Take care of your body. We are still thinking of a way. Yu-marin said to Wen Zhao, although your current situation is a little special, there is always a way out. Even Soo-yun could be revived by Mo Wen-tion's silver needles, let alone your situation. Wen Zhao laughed bitterly. He knew that Yu-marin was comforting him. Their situations were different. Even Mo Wen-tion could not use a few silver needles to restore a cripple like him to his peak. Moreover, even if he could, would he do it? It was obvious that they couldn't save him. Apart from Soo-yun and Yu-marin, he was still considered one of their own, but in the eyes of others, he was a heinous criminal. How could the sinner dare to ask for anything else? It was Soo-yun who could not bear to let him live. Otherwise, he would have killed him at that time, and there would not be such trouble now. I believe that with Soo-yun's glib tongue, he will definitely be able to convince Mo Wen-tion to check on your situation. Yu-marin said, even if he doesn't have a way to help you, he might be able to find out where your problem lies with his research on meridians and acupoints. If we take another approach, we might be able to see the light. Perhaps. Wen Zhao didn't want to refuse Yu-marin's kindness. Although he didn't believe it himself, he still nodded. However, there was a new turning point in all his despair. Just when Wen Zhao didn't expect Mo Wen-tion to help him, Mo Wen-tion really did appear. Soo-yun and Zhuo Lingyue came with him. Ruan Qingshuang naturally didn't leave his side. She wasn't as careless as Zhuo Meiyan. She was completely relieved when she saw that Soo-yun had woken up. It was impossible for Sky Entertainment to have no one in charge for so long. Although Zhuo Meiyan also wanted to stay by Soo-yun's side to watch him recover, she still had to deal with business most of the time. Bai Xiaoya naturally came as well. She was quite hostile towards Wen Zhao, so she wasn't even willing to enter his ward. She really couldn't understand why Soo-yun would call such a person, who had spared no effort to harm him, his brother. However, this was something that Soo-yun wanted to decide himself. No one else could interfere, and no one had the right to interfere. After seeing Soo-yun, Wen Zhao was a little surprised, a little panicked, and a little at a loss. He didn't know what to say at all. Was it an apology? Was it a blessing? Or, are you feeling better now? Soo-yun acted as if nothing had happened. Uncle Mo promised me to check on your condition. You just have to cooperate with us. Boss, I appreciate your kindness, but I really don't want to trouble anyone. Wen Zhao frowned. His voice still sounded terrifying. Just let me fend for myself. Upon hearing this, Mo Wen-tion snorted. You're looking down on me. Forget it. Since you're looking down on me, I have nothing to say. Soo-yun, you heard it yourself. Since he wants to fend for himself, even the gods can't save him. Do you understand what I mean? Soo-yun didn't expect Wen Zhao to say such a thing. He hurriedly explained, Uncle Mo, his consciousness might still be a little unclear. Please don't take offense. You must help him take a look. I beg you, I Soo-yun will remember your kindness in my heart. In the future, if there's anything you need me to do, I'll do anything, even if I have to sacrifice my life. Upon hearing Soo-yun's sincerity, Mo Wen-tion's expression recovered. However, he still looked at Wen Zhao unwillingly. I'm very clear about my own consciousness. I'm very clear-headed. Upon hearing Soo-yun's words, Wen Xiao appeared to be even more conflicted. I said I don't need you, so I don't need you. I'm fine with fending for myself. Really, boss, you don't have to care so much about me, okay? Wen Xiao didn't really want to fend for himself. It was just that he saw Su Yun begging so humbly just to let Mo Wentian take a look at his condition. What do you mean by doing anything for me? Why? Why should Su Yun owe Mo Wentian such a huge favor because of me? Mo Wentian's arrogant and stern look made Wen Xiao feel the awkwardness and helplessness in Su Yun's heart when he begged him to do something. Wen Xiao knew what kind of person Su Yun was. If Su Yun had any other methods, he wouldn't have begged Mo Wentian like this. In other words, if it was his own body, he wouldn't have begged someone who was arrogant and cold to him. However, this problem was with him, Wen Xiao. Hence, Su Yun had no choice but to lower himself. Yo, look at your attitude. Mo Wentian laughed coldly. Forget it. Su Yun, no matter what you say to me now, I won't help you. Because he doesn't even. Mo Wentian. Zhuo Lingyue suddenly opened her mouth and interrupted Mo Wentian. Mo Wentian didn't dare to complain at all just because he was interrupted. He could only shut his mouth obediently and turned his head to look at Zhuo Lingyue, waiting for her next instructions. From Zhuo Lingyue's expression, it could be seen that she was very dissatisfied with Mo Wentian's performance just now. Since you are already here, why are you still talking so much nonsense? Do what you need to do. Just do what you need to do. Don't make me angry. And don't keep thinking that Su Yun owes you anything. If you really feel that you are at a disadvantage, then ask me for help. I won't say this for the third time, understand? Mo Wentian laughed dryly and didn't dare to be rash. That, since it's like this, we won't waste any more time. Su Yun, your brother is also a straightforward person. As Mo Wentian spoke, he took out his silver needles. Before Wen Xiao could react, 3 silver needles had already pierced into Wen Xiao's forehead. Wen Xiao, who was eager to reject Mo Wentian just now, couldn't open his mouth and didn't struggle anymore. He could only open his eyes wide and let Mo Wentian carry out the next step of observation and diagnosis. Although Mo Wentian didn't know how to take a pulse by suspensory thread, he had his own unique skill, which was to take a pulse with silver needles. He pierced a silver needle into Wen Xiao's pulse. The silver needle pulsated regularly and randomly along with the pulse. Mo Wentian didn't even need to use his hands to feel, and could determine Wen Xiao's pulse based on the reaction of the silver needle. Most likely, only he, Mo Wentian, would be able to pull off such a grand trick. Most people would not even dare to think about it. The ward was very quiet. Everyone was waiting for Mo Wentian's result. However, Zhuo Lingyue suddenly stood up and looked outside the ward. She didn't know why, but she had a faint sense of uneasiness just now. Outside the ward, if it wasn't the patient, it was the family members of the patient who came and went to visit the patient, or the nurses and doctors. There was no sign of anything wrong. Chapter 1753. Zhuo Lingyue rubbed her temples. Perhaps she had been in an overly tense atmosphere during this period of time, so she seemed to be particularly sensitive. Forget it, she was too nervous. After all, this was a hospital. What danger could there be? Zhuo Lingyue asked herself as she sat down again. Looking at Zhuo Lingyue's reaction, Chou Yun couldn't help but look out of the ward. Yes, Chou Yun, who had a sensitive sense of smell, also had a strange feeling, but she couldn't really tell what it was. Could it be that she had been too nervous recently? Nervousness would make people sensitive. Perhaps nothing had changed. It was just that they were a little sensitive. During this period of time, Zhuo Lingyue and Chou Yun wouldn't think too much. They were more focused on the ward and wanted to know if Wen Xiao still had a chance. If there was, it would naturally be the best. Everyone would be happy and harmonious. It wasn't that they were happy, because that would make Su Yun feel relieved. If there really wasn't any chance, it didn't matter. After all, they didn't have any feelings for Wen Xiao. In the whole ward, other than Su Yun and Yu Marin who were friends with Wen Xiao, the others really didn't have any feelings. Although Wen Xiao didn't particularly accept Mo Wentian's charity treatment, Su Yun had already done so much for him. What else could he insist on? It was better for him to cooperate. A disabled person shouldn't think too much and just treat himself as if he was already dead. Moreover, this was probably his only chance. Strange, really strange. Suddenly, Mo Wentian furrowed his brows and looked at Wen Xiao in shock. He stretched out his hand to pry open Wen Xiao's eyelids to take a look. Then he suddenly took out a silver needle and inserted it into the back of Wen Xiao's ear. With this needle inserted, Wen Xiao immediately lost all energy. Just now, Wen Xiao was still a little unhappy because Mo Wentian had flipped his eyelids without a second word. Now he closed his eyes and fell asleep immediately. Mo Wentian's ghost doctor's acupuncture technique was really not to be underestimated. With just one needle, he had fallen asleep. Su Yun was a little worried. Uncle Mo, this is... Don't worry. Although this needle is more powerful than an anesthetic, it doesn't have any side effects. If you want him to wake up, you just have to pull out the needle. Mo Wentian said. I am doing this for his own good. His heart is not willing to cooperate with my treatment. I need him to stabilize his emotions. Upon hearing this, Su Yun was relieved. He was very grateful for everything that Mo Wentian had done. How is his situation? Is there a chance to recover? In theory, there is a way. Mo Wentian's tone changed. However, it only exists in theory. Because it's basically, forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Talking too much will only add to your troubles. That's all for today. I want to see how he is tomorrow. Su Yun still wanted to open his mouth to ask something, but Zuo Lingyue gave him a look, indicating for him to keep his cool. Since Mo Wentian had already made his move, it meant that he wouldn't care anymore. He suddenly stopped caring halfway through. This wasn't Mo Wentian's style. No matter what, Mo Wentian would eventually give an answer. Now that he didn't say anything, it meant that he didn't know what to do. With the effect of the silver needle, Wen Xiao would definitely be able to sleep for the whole day. Perhaps it was something beneficial and harmless to him. Su Yun didn't care much about it. Since Mo Wentian hadn't said that Wen Xiao couldn't be saved, Su Yun wasn't so nervous anymore. Mo Wentian said that Wen Xiao needed to recuperate. The smoother his breathing was, the more helpful it would be for him. Therefore, everyone didn't waste any more time and left the hospital. After all, this ward was guarded by the criminal police. It was already a high standard of security. Although Mo Wentian seemed to be unwilling to diagnose Wen Xiao, he was especially curious about this situation. After returning, not only did he ponder about it, he also made a few calls. He didn't know who he was calling, but they were all discussing Wen Xiao's problem. Zuo Lingyue told Su Yun that although Mo Wentian didn't seem easy to get along with, he was still very reliable when it came to doing things. She believed that he would definitely be able to give an answer. Just like that, time passed unknowingly and it was already late at night. Su Yun continued to recover his body under Mo Wentian's acupuncture. This shift is really relaxing. I don't know what Commissioner Chun is thinking. That guy inside is already in such a state. Can he still escape? At the door of Wen Xiao's ward, two young criminal police officers who were in charge of looking after him sat on both sides of the door board. The tall young criminal police officer seemed to be especially bored by this job arrangement. He yawned and chatted with the short young criminal police officer. Do you think that someone from an organization will come and rescue the brother inside? Have you watched too many movies? The short criminal police officer was speechless. Is there going to be a helicopter landing? Bringing heavy weapons to finish us off and rescue the person inside? Hollywood? If you're tired, just take a nap. I'll take a look first. Don't think about it blindly. Aren't you tired? Haha, isn't it because I'm idle and bored? The tall young criminal police officer was quite fond of fantasizing. If they really come, then I'm not afraid. I'll directly finish them off and earn a first-class merit. That would bring honor to my ancestors. The short young criminal police officer sighed. Brother, both of us aren't even wearing bulletproof vests. Did you practice the golden bell shield or the iron shirt? You're so confident that you're not even afraid of bullets. You're really boring. I don't like to be on duty with you. It's boring. The tall young criminal police officer waved his hand. You watch, I'll take a nap. Before he finished his sentence, footsteps could be heard from the hospital corridor far away. It was already close to 1 o'clock in the night. Even the young nurses on duty were almost closing their eyes to rest. The sudden appearance of the footsteps naturally made the two criminal police officers more alert. The footsteps were very heavy. It was obviously a man. The moment a man wearing a hoodie appeared, the two criminal police officers quickly raised their vigilance. In the middle of the night, even if an ordinary person passed by, it would be quite scary. The man lowered his head. Under the cover of the hoodie, no one could see what he looked like. The tall young criminal police officer had already stood up because the man seemed to be walking towards them step by step. Because they were in a hospital, they couldn't raise their voices. They could only question in a soft voice, "Who are you?" The man didn't say anything. He still walked towards the two criminal police officers step by step. The short young criminal police officer couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and said, "We're asking you a question." We're police dash. Before he could finish his sentence, the man in the hoodie suddenly took a big stride forward and rushed to the front of the two young police officers in an instant. The two of them felt a numbing pain in their chest and directly fell to the ground. There was not a single sound during the whole process. The man in the hoodie sneered and faintly spat out two words from his mouth, "Trash." He bent down and dragged the two criminal police officers up and placed them on their respective chairs. Then he quietly pushed open the door of Wen Zhao's ward and directly walked in. The whole process was probably only recorded by the surveillance cameras in the corridor. But now, the surveillance cameras in the monitoring room were all snowflakes. The staff on duty in the monitoring room had already fallen asleep on the table. After the man in the hoodie entered the ward, the snowflakes in the surveillance cameras disappeared. After the man in the hoodie walked into Wen Zhao's ward, he pulled off the hood on his head. However, in the dark ward, only the faint moonlight could make out his cold and gloomy face. The sound of two young nurses going to the bathroom came from the corridor. The man in the hoodie stood in front of Wen Zhao's bed silently and quietly looked at Wen Zhao, who was unconscious on the bed. The man in the hoodie didn't walk to Wen Zhao's bedside until the two young nurses came back from the bathroom and went back to the lounge. Chapter 1754. Of course, Wen Zhao was completely unaware of this, but the man in the hoodie seemed to understand the situation. When he walked to the side of Wen Zhao's bed, he reached out and gently pulled out the silver needle on the acupuncture point behind Wen Zhao's ear. His movements were smooth and without any hesitation. Wen Zhao's whole body trembled, and in an instant his only eye widened. He sat up on the bed with a whoosh. Although Wen Zhao's eyes were a little dazed, his mind was obviously clear. When he saw the man in the hoodie in front of him, his first reaction was to attack. But soon his body's reaction told him that he no longer had the strength to deliver a fatal blow. It could even be said that he did not even have the strength to attack. His heavy shoulders made Wen Zhao almost unable to raise his fist. "Wen Ai, it's been a year since we last met, right? Now that you see me, an old friend, are you going to treat me in this way?" The man in the hoodie said in broken Chinese. "I heard that something happened to you, so I came all the way from the Middle East to see you. Do you feel honored?" Wen Zhao stared at the man in front of him. After a long time, he finally gritted his teeth and squeezed out two words from between his lips. "Vulture." "Oh, you haven't responded to me for so long. I thought Brother Wen Ai was forgetful." Vulture, the leader of the Southeast Asian Armed Forces, hurried to Huaxia after he was informed by his subordinates. In the past 2 days he had been biding his time and observing. Before he was sure that Wen Zhao had become a cripple, he would not act rashly because he was very clear about Wen Zhao's strength. Today he finally confirmed that Wen Zhao was no longer the Wen Zhao of the past. Although the people present during the day had an extremely strong aura, Vulture did not give up. He believed that no one would be present at night, because they were not very friendly to Wen Zhao. The only one who really cared about Wen Zhao was also very weak, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. He was afraid that he would not be able to do much. There were only 2 criminal police officers at night, which was not a problem for Vulture at all. After so many years of war in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, he had long been used to all kinds of stealth methods and methods to solve problems. To him, it was just a simple and normal thing to do. Wen Xiao was well aware of how much Vulture hated him. Over the years, every time they clashed, Vulture would always lose. Over time, Vulture's armed organization became a second-rate mercenary organization in that area. Naturally, their price would be greatly reduced. In the battle a year ago, Wen Xiao caused the opposing party that hired Vulture to suffer heavy losses. Vulture suffered a crushing defeat and returned in defeat. He left Southeast Asia in despair and hid in a small town in the Middle East to recuperate and recruit new soldiers. This grudge was not a small matter for Vulture. It could be said that the war made him, who had worked hard for more than 10 years, go back to square one in one night. How could Vulture not hold a grudge? This was the reason why he had arranged for people to follow Wen Zhao's every move even though he was in such a sorry state. He had to get his revenge. How did you find this place? Wen Xiao realized that the odds were stacked against him. However, he was not afraid of death at all. You don't have to worry about that. Vulture said proudly. One Eye, I didn't expect this day to come for you. So, do you have anything else you want to say? Do you have any regrets or unfinished business? You can tell me. I can help you solve them. Really? Wen Xiao said coldly. If you're here to laugh at me, then congratulations. You finally have the chance to show off in front of me. However, let me tell you, you can only show off in front of me under such circumstances. On the battlefield, you will never win. Vulture spat in the face of Wen Zhao's provocation. One Eye, what right do you have to be so arrogant? You're already like this. What right do you have to be arrogant with me? Look at your situation. I can kill you at any time. Then come. What I want now is death. Wen Xiao was not joking. If Vulture killed him, would it not be a relief for him? Perhaps he had done too many evil things in his life and deserved such a punishment. Come on, do it. Wen Zhao's heart could really let go of everything and accept the punishment of death at any time. Yes, I do want to kill you with my own hands. All these years, you've made me suffer so much. You should know very well how hard it is for me to swallow. Vulture said. But now that I see you like this, I don't want to kill you. Do you want to know why? Because you're better off dead than alive. Wen Xiao sneered. If you don't kill me now, I'm afraid you won't have a chance in the future. When I recover, do you think you'll still have a chance? Vulture smiled and picked up the silver needle in his hand. It seems that this thing is really useful behind your ear. After you fainted, you didn't hear what they said, right? They said that you can't be saved and can only be a cripple for the rest of your life. They didn't want you to know this fact, so they only told you after you fainted. Vulture said these words to provoke Wen Xiao. However, he believed that Wen Xiao could not be saved. The expression of the person who treated Wen Xiao was filled with helplessness and confusion. Wen Xiao indeed recalled that he had fainted after being pricked with a needle. He did not know what happened after that until just now, when he opened his eyes and saw Vulture in front of him. Obviously, it was already the latter half of the night. One Eye, I will watch you suffer from the pain and suffering in your heart bit by bit before I can bear to let you die. Vulture smiled. Come try this. This is a new drug for the mentally damaged mercenaries on the battlefield. It can make people forget everything they saw and heard in the last few hours. The drug is still in the experimental stage. I don't know if there are any side effects, but I can guarantee that you will forget my appearance. Wen Xiao struggled to dodge, but his body did not have the ability to do so. You bastard! Vulture! How can you do such a despicable thing? Are you still a man? Vulture did not care so much. He opened Wen Zhao's mouth and swallowed the capsule. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't remember that I was here? Maybe you'll feel a little better. When Wen Xiao had no choice but to swallow the capsule that Vulture had forced into his mouth, Vulture suddenly stretched out his hand and hit Wen Zhao's chest. In the blink of an eye, he had injected a very small syringe into Wen Zhao's body. Just like how Vulture had injected 2 small syringes into the bodies of the 2 police officers outside the door just now. The syringes were very useful. If no one woke them up loudly, they could sleep until they died. If they were woken up, it would be as if nothing had happened and they had just fallen asleep. Vulture didn't want to cause trouble in Huaxia, so he didn't dare to kill the 2 police officers rashly. This injection could make the two police officers completely quiet and not disturb him and Wen Xiao. This was enough. Someone would definitely wake them up tomorrow. As for Wen Xiao, someone would definitely wake him up. The only reason Vulture did this was because he didn't know where to insert the silver needle to make Wen Xiao fall asleep again. Now that Wen Xiao was also unconscious, he wouldn't remember their conversation even if he woke up. Vulture inserted the silver needle into the back of Wen Xiao's ear again, put on his hoodie, pushed open the door and walked out of the ward. At this time, the screen in the hospital's monitoring room that was monitoring the corridor flashed again. Chapter 1755. Perhaps Mo Wentian was not an easy person to get along with, or perhaps he was not a medical practitioner with a parental heart, but he was definitely a medical fanatic. If Wen Zhao's situation was not so complicated, he would not have been so concerned. After yesterday's research and the call with a few mysterious friends, Mo Wentian had not slept for the entire night. His mind was filled with only one question, which was how to solve Wen Zhao's situation. Moreover, the night was not wasted. The morning sun had just shone through the curtains into the room when Mo Wentian stood up impatiently. He needed to go to the hospital to determine something. After confirming Wen Zhao's condition, he could basically determine whether Wen Xiao could be saved or not. Mo Wentian, who had already made the final judgment, could not sit still. Everyone who had been woken up by him in the morning was also very surprised. This person's change in reaction was really too big. Because of Mo Wentian's eagerness, everyone did not even have time to eat breakfast. Seeing that Su Yin was also very excited, Ruan Qingshuang asked everyone to go to the hospital, while she brought Guogua and Chou Yun to buy some simple breakfast for everyone. Mo Wentian did not stand on ceremony, and mentioned that he wanted to eat herbal tea, eggs and drink sweet foam. Although these things were very simple, they seemed to be things that he could not eat when he was living in seclusion in the secret valley. Although the continuous introduction of Xinshang's breakfast had a huge impact on the traditional breakfast market, there were still a few decent breakfast shops in Qingdao that made the sweet foam especially authentic. Moreover, this thing was probably the hottest and most authentic sweet foam that one could drink in Qingdao in the morning. Su Yun and the rest were not in the mood to eat at this time, so they quickly brought Mo Wentian to the hospital. Everyone got out of the car and went straight to the ward. When they arrived, they saw Chun Wei at the door of the ward, scolding the two young criminal police officers from last night in a low voice. The two of them lowered their heads and did not dare to say anything. As for the things that they vaguely remembered in their minds, they also did not dare to speak recklessly. Luckily, there was nothing unusual in the ward. Wen Xiao was still in a deep sleep, so the two of them could more or less heave a sigh of relief. "Did I ask you to come here to sleep?" Chun Wei stared and said. "In the future, if you want to sleep, then go home and sleep. You don't have to come to work anymore. No matter what, you have to remember your job and your responsibilities. What are we? You're a police officer, a public servant of the people. You can't cheat at any time." In fact, the two of them felt wronged in their hearts. They were still very professional. Even if they were tired, they would take a break from each other. Who knew that the two of them would fall asleep yesterday? "Chief Chun, we know we're wrong. We'll work hard in the future and remember our responsibilities." The two of them lowered their heads and said. They vaguely remembered that a person had appeared last night, but they had no recollection of what happened after that. It was like a dream, and they couldn't remember the latter half of it. "Uncle Chun, they might be really tired. I can understand. Please don't blame them." Su Yin smiled and stepped forward to smooth things over. "Originally, we should be responsible for this matter. Sorry to trouble you." Chun Wei said. "Don't speak up for them, kid. I'm doing this for their own good. Also, before this matter is settled, I have the authority to be responsible for monitoring this person. If your superiors want to take over this matter, they have to give me an official document before I can let him go. I won't let him go just because of you. You should understand what I mean. Su Yin, you have to do things according to the rules." Su Yin nodded. "I understand." "Then you guys go in. I went in to take a look just now. He's still sleeping inside." Chun Wei said. "You should also hurry up and let your superiors deal with this." Otherwise, I'll have to keep an eye on him. Suyin nodded. Chen Wei waved his hand and motioned them to go in quickly. He was afraid that he would have to lecture the two young people now, so that they wouldn't fall into the dangerous situation of neglecting their duties so early. Chen Wei's prestige had been established in a short period of time, so the people below him were still very respectful to him. They listened carefully to his well-meaning advice. It was just that the vague dream yesterday was something that the two of them couldn't talk about. Indeed, there was no way to report such an unreliable matter to Chen Wei. The first thing Mo Wentian wanted to do when he walked into the ward was to remove the needle from Wen Zhao's ear. However, the moment his finger touched the needle, he frowned. He was very clear about the needle that he had inserted. It seemed like someone had touched it. Someone had definitely touched it. Could it be that Wen Zhao wasn't controlled by this acupuncture point? Or could it be that something had happened? Someone else had been here? Stop pretending. If you're awake, then tell me what's going on, Mo Wentian said with a frown. He didn't pull out the needle behind Wen Zhao's ear. Everyone was obviously stunned by Mo Wentian's words. They all looked at Mo Wentian dumbfounded. However, Wen Zhao, who was lying on the sickbed, didn't move at all. There was no sign of him waking up at all. Zhuo Lingyue frowned. She knew that Mo Wentian wasn't a person who liked to joke. Since he said this, there must be something going on. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. Someone was here. Facing Zhuo Lingyue's question, Mo Wentian answered without hesitation. He glanced at Wen Zhao again. This guy shouldn't be pretending to be unconscious, right? All right, I'll let you pretend. Mo Wentian directly pulled out the needle, but Wen Zhao still didn't have any reaction. Mo Wentian laughed coldly. I'm clearer than anyone about the effect and reaction of my needle. I can make him fall asleep when I poke him, and wake him up when I pull it out. However, the current situation, you should be clear about it even without me saying it, right? If he's not pretending to be unconscious, then someone must have been here last night. Otherwise, it's impossible for such a situation to happen. What I Mo Wentian am sure of can't be wrong. Suyin frowned. He walked to Wen Zhao's side. He couldn't possibly be pretending with him, right? Wen Zhao, Yumarin, who had always been gentle and refined, suddenly went forward and punched Wen Zhao fiercely. So many people are busy because of you. If you still want to pretend and not cooperate, then who are you worthy of? Yumarin's punch landed on Wen Zhao's chest. Wen Zhao coughed and woke up abruptly. His reaction was obviously not a pretense. It was as though he had been woken up from a deep sleep. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They could tell from Wen Zhao's reaction that this was definitely not an act. Wen Zhao widened his eyes and looked at the people around him. He didn't understand why they were looking at him with such a gaze. You all. What do you want to do? Who was here yesterday? Mo Wentian believed that it was impossible for his needle to fail. The person who pulled out the needle was definitely not Wen Zhao. Wen Zhao looked at Mo Wentian blankly. Obviously, he didn't know what Mo Wentian meant. He couldn't remember what had happened before at all. Didn't you all come here yesterday? Wen Zhao asked. Mo Wentian was stunned. If you still want me to save you, then you better tell me the truth. After we left, who else came? No one came, Wen Zhao said with certainty. Then why did your needle become passive? Let me tell you, once this needle becomes passive, you will wake up. This is an indisputable fact. I can use everyone here as an experiment. Mo Wentian said. When you wake up, you will definitely see who came. Why would I lie to you? Am I crazy? If I say no one came, then no one came. Wen Zhao was also a little speechless. What's there to lie about? When Mo Wentian saw Wen Zhao's reaction, he knew that there was indeed no need to lie to him. However, how did things become like this? Whether or not anyone came, just ask the two outside the door, Bai Xiaoye said. There's no need to ask. Su Yin shook his head. If they saw anyone, they would definitely report it. If they didn't report it, it means that they didn't see anyone. Just now, when Chief Chen was lecturing them, they fell asleep in the latter half of the night. If someone came, it would definitely be after midnight. Chapter 1756. Surveillance, Zhuolingyue said calmly. Zhuolingyue said calmly. She glanced at Lin Gu. Lin Gu immediately understood what Zhuolingyue meant. He nodded and quickly left the ward. Coincidentally, Chen Wei was still there. With his help, he could easily ask the hospital to show them everything that happened yesterday. Chen Wei understood what Lin Gu meant. He also understood that something that shouldn't have happened in the hospital when the two young police officers were asleep. Thinking that things might be very bad, Chen Wei couldn't sit still. He immediately took Lin Gu to find the person in charge of the hospital and asked for the surveillance video from last night. Lin Gu and Chen Wei were puzzled by the surveillance video. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the two young police officers were still talking and laughing at the door of the ward. However, the surveillance video suddenly turned into static and disappeared. After 1 or 2 minutes, the surveillance video returned to normal. The two young police officers fell asleep at the door of the ward. Then the two young nurses in the duty room appeared. However, they didn't approach the ward. They just went to the bathroom on the same floor. After a few minutes, the static appeared again on the surveillance video. After the static disappeared, all the surveillance content returned to normal. They saw Chen Wei wake up the two young police officers early in the morning. There was nothing wrong with the surveillance video. If there was something wrong, it would be when the snowflakes appeared for the first time in the surveillance footage. That was because after 1 or 2 minutes, the two young criminal police officers had already fallen asleep. But what on earth would happen in 1 minute? Why was it so coincidental that the surveillance video had a problem? Was it a coincidence or a premeditated plan? After Lin Gu conveyed the surveillance video, Su Yin had his own judgment. He believed that someone must have appeared, and this person must have brought some kind of technology that could interfere with the surveillance camera's normal recording through wireless technology. Now that the technology was so advanced, it wasn't that difficult to get such a thing. Moreover, the hospital wasn't a secret place. Therefore, it was impossible to spend a lot of money to install anti-interference cameras. It was very normal for the surveillance video to be interfered with by the technology that could interfere with the normal operation of the surveillance camera. If someone had come, he must not be a simple person. Not only could he interfere with the normal surveillance video, but he also had the ability to do something to the two police officers. The two well-trained young police officers fell asleep within a minute. Apparently, they were affected by some external influence. Could it be something like sleeping incense? Bai Xiaoya guessed. Someone used sleeping incense, and the two fell asleep after smelling it. It won't happen. Su Yin denied Bai Xiaoya's conjecture. Although the sleeping incense works quickly, it also disappears quickly. The surveillance footage clearly shows that the two of them were unconscious until Chief Chen woke them up. It's just like how Yumarin woke Wen Xiao up. It requires a strong influence to wake them up. Zhuolingyue also nodded. That's right. Two nurses also went to the bathroom together after the incident. If it was something like ecstasy powder, they would definitely be affected. Obviously, they weren't affected at all. These two people were anesthetized by something alone, and not by something in the large space. Chen Wei quickly furrowed his brows. This matter really needed to be investigated. He immediately called in the two officers who were on duty last night and questioned this matter in front of everyone. The two young police officers looked at each other and said that they really couldn't remember what had happened in a daze. They wouldn't talk about the dreamlike things and let others make fun of them. After all, it was too cinematic. It was fine if they talked about it in private, but they were afraid that others would laugh at them if they talked about it in front of others. Mo Wentian was puzzled. His gaze was always on Wen Xiao. If someone had come in and touched Wen Xiao's silver needles, Wen Xiao would have woken up so quickly that no one would have a chance to avoid him. He would definitely be able to see who had entered his room. However, Wen Xiao was the most confused among everyone. It was as if his memory had been erased. He didn't understand what had happened at all. Mo Wentian said calmly, "It seems like this person had a plan. To be able to interfere with the surveillance, avoid the guards, and make Wen Xiao lose his memory. Haha, not simple." Moreover, he knew that pulling out the silver needles behind Wen Xiao's ear could wake him up. This means that when I was doing all this yesterday, he could see it. When he said this, everyone was stunned. Could it be that they were on the same side? However, those who were present yesterday had all returned to Su Yun's side. Moreover, no one had the need to do that. Why did he have to avoid Su Yun to do all these things? There was really no need to do that. Zhuo Lingyue realized that her uneasiness yesterday was not groundless. It was definitely not because she was nervous because of her tiredness in the past few days. Yesterday, she had sensed that something was wrong, but she didn't care about it. It seemed that the walls had ears. It was really impossible to guard against it. There was one more thing that Zhuo Lingyue didn't understand. Since he had secretly visited in the middle of the night, he naturally had his own purpose. However, Wen Xiao didn't seem to have anything wrong with him. Was he a friend? Not an enemy. Then why did he make Wen Xiao forget what had happened? Why did he have to avoid them? If he was an enemy, not a friend, then why didn't he kill Wen Xiao when he didn't even have the most basic ability to resist? No matter what, this didn't make sense. This really made Zhuo Lingyue unable to understand. Su Yun also didn't understand this matter. Wen Zhao's eyes didn't have any intention of deceit. Su Yun believed that he didn't know anything about it. Anyway, Wen Xiao didn't have any changes. He believed that the other party didn't have any evil intentions. Now none of us can be sure about the situation. We also don't know whether the other party is an enemy or a friend. However, for the time being, he doesn't pose any threat to us. Zhuo Lingyue said. In this case, we don't need to investigate. Let everything develop naturally. If the other party still has the intention to do something, he will definitely give himself away. Su Yun nodded. He also agreed with Zhuo Lingyue's idea. Let things develop naturally. Things that couldn't be controlled no matter how hard they tried. In the face of this completely baffling matter, they could only let it go for the time being. Of course, Wen Xiao was even more relaxed. To him, it didn't matter whether he was dead or alive. What he didn't want to see was to cause Su Yun to waste so much energy. Mo Wentian also didn't want to think about these messy matters anymore. He only wanted to get an answer from Wen Xiao. Could he be saved? Was it really the most unreliable and impossible method that could turn this guy from a cripple back into an expert? After yesterday's incident, Wen Xiao was more cooperative with Mo Wentian. After Mo Wentian's diagnosis, he couldn't smile anymore. Seeing his serious expression, Su Yun's heart was also in his throat. Is there any other way? Zhuo Lingyue didn't want to speculate. No matter what, it was better to give an answer quickly, so that she wouldn't be anxious. Anyway, whether Wen Xiao could be saved or not didn't matter to her. She just didn't want Su Yun to be disappointed. Other things didn't matter. Mo Wentian naturally didn't dare to keep Zhuo Lingyue in suspense. However, this method can also be said to be no. What do you mean? Can you not make it so complicated? Is it so difficult to answer this question? Zhuo Lingyue said a little impatiently. Mo Wentian laughed bitterly. If he wants to recover his Venus strength, I don't have the ability to do so. His condition is that he is overly reliant on the power of the heart demon, resulting in the disappearance of the power of the heart demon, and the inability to accumulate power. If he wants to recover, he can only use a piece of paboyu that the Zixahoya tribesmen have worn for a long time. It will take at least 3 years to warm his mental state. Only then can he recover. Zixahoya tribesmen, paboyu. These were simply myths from the Arabian Nights. Even Mo Wentian himself knew this. However, this was indeed one of the few possibilities that he had come up with after discussing with his old friends yesterday. Chapter 1757. Hearing Mo Wentian's answer, Zhuo Lingyue was obviously not satisfied at all. She laughed coldly. Mo Wentian, if you really have no way, just say so. How could he come up with such a method without thinking? Is this even a method? What kind of brain did you use to think of this? Lingyue, I'm really not spouting nonsense. Seeing that Zhuo Lingyue didn't believe him, Mo Wentian's expression was as aggrieved as it could be. He had spent a lot of effort to get this information with the help of his old friends. Based on his diagnosis of Wen Zhao's condition just now, it was in line with this point. He needed to use this method. This was definitely a folk prescription that almost no one in the underground world knew about. If it wasn't for the fact that he and Shen Jinmao's grandson, Shen Gongda, once had a fatal friendship by chance, he really wouldn't have been able to obtain this folk prescription. Zhuo Lingyue's disbelief really hurt Mo Wentian's heart. How do you want me to believe you? Zixahoya clansman, Paboyu. Zhuo Lingyue took a deep breath. Where can I find them? Even if I can use all my connections to find Paboyu, where can I find the Zixahoya clansmen? That's an extinct clan. It's the same logic as you asking me to find a shadow clansman. They don't exist in this world. She really didn't know if Phantom had also woken up with Su Yun and arrived at the hospital. How would she feel after hearing Zhuo Lingyue's words? An extinct clan. It's better not to appear in the public's sight forever. Otherwise, wouldn't it be treated coldly by the world? Of course I know so. I said that this is a way, but it can also be said that there is no way. Mo Wentian said. But I'm really not speaking off the cuff. Mo Wentian, am not the kind of person who is eloquent. Every word that I've said has definitely been verified, especially in a situation like this. But this is indeed the only way. Since I know it, I definitely have to say it. Even if this method is impossible. But this. Sai, how can I explain it? Zhuo Lingyue was obviously very dissatisfied with Mo Wentian's answer. However, thinking carefully about Mo Wentian's character, he was indeed not the kind of person who was eloquent and would casually make irresponsible remarks. His words were still very reliable, and he would never speak carelessly if there was no verification. Was there really no other way? Zhuo Lingyue, who was still unhappy, naturally wouldn't be appeased so easily. If this is the method, you might as well not say it. Use your brain. Even if you find the Pobo Jade, you will also find the Zixahoya clansmen. Are you really going to let the Zixahoya clansmen wear the jade for 3 years? Can you afford to wait? Can the person on the bed wait? Then just pretend that I didn't say anything. This guy is hopeless, alright? Mo Wentian was rather depressed after being scolded. He had good intentions, so why was he being scolded? One had to know that in order to obtain this answer, he had spent a lot of effort. Su Yun did not say a word. He seemed to have fallen into a sealed space. If this method works, then Wen Xiao can be saved. This is because Guogua is a Zixahoya clansman and Guogua has a piece of Zixahoya jade. Zhuo Lingyue seemed to have realized that she had gone overboard. Her tone softened a little. I didn't mean to be angry at you, but you have been in the underground world for so many years. If there are still Zixahoya clansmen in the world wearing Zixahoya jade, do you think the underground world will still be so peaceful? I'm afraid they would have gone crazy. Zhuo Lingyue's words were like a strong injection that directly hit Su Yun's brain. That's right. If Su Yun let Guogua appear now, it would undoubtedly prove the existence of Zixahoya clansmen. It would also reveal Guogua's hidden secret. It wasn't that Su Yun didn't believe Mo Wentian, but he really didn't dare to take the risk. Moreover, there are people on Zhuo Lingyue's side. Zhuo Lingyue is already at the pinnacle of strength, so she may not be so tempting. But what about the people around her? Although Ling Feng and Onan are war god level people, who can resist the temptation of a sudden increase in strength? Speaking of which, Su Yun doesn't even know if he should believe Zhuo Lingyue. Guogua's identity is hidden even from the brothers in the Dragon Brigade. Zhuo Lingyue is indeed a supreme expert in the Sky Profound realm. However, there is a legendary limitless realm in the underground world. Only those who have broken through to the 9th level of the Sky Profound realm can experience the true power of the limitless realm. Even Zhuo Lingyue can't do this. She doesn't even dare to imagine that she can touch this mysterious realm. What if she is given such a chance? Will the temptation of power cause her to fall into a state of struggle? All these are things that Su Yun doesn't know. What Su Yun knows is whether he has enough strength to protect Guogua. If he doesn't, he really can't take the risk. Even if Su Yun doesn't say that this is related to Guogua, if he can take out that piece of Pabo jade on Guogua, once the news gets out, he will be subjected to all kinds of investigations. Now, if an ordinary person wants to conduct a human flesh search, they can find out what an unrelated person's 8 generations of ancestors did in a short period of time. Not to mention the experts in the underground world. As long as it is done, it really can't be hidden. Yumarin knows Guogua's secret. When she saw Su Yun's reaction, she knew that she shouldn't speak carelessly. Su Yun must have his own judgment. Obviously, his judgment can't be replaced by others, and will be the most reasonable. Mo Wentian looked wronged and didn't speak anymore. Zhuo Lingyue also didn't want to provoke him anymore, so she didn't say anything more. Wen Xiao, who was lying on the sickbed, laughed bitterly. Of course, he also knows how ridiculous this answer is. Of course, he doesn't doubt the reliability of Mo Wentian's method, but he also really believes that this method can't be implemented. Senior Mo, I've troubled you. Wen Xiao said. Wen Xiao, I'm not someone who is afraid of death. Isn't it just being crippled? For people who don't care about death, being crippled isn't unacceptable. As the saying goes, a bad life is better than a good death. At least I'm still alive now. I should feel lucky. Everyone in the room could hear the bitterness in Wen Xiao's words. Those who think that a bad life is better than a good death are people who don't seek to improve themselves. They are destined to be mediocre and mediocre for life. They are walking corpses who don't have any meaning in life. As long as it is a person with thoughts and aspirations, they wouldn't think that this saying is right. If Wen Xiao really wants to live like this for the rest of his life, he might as well give him a quick death. Su Yun believed that Wen Xiao must have such thoughts because they are the same type of people. Everyone in the Dragon Brigade is a person who pursues their own future. Even if Wen Xiao has gone down the wrong path, Su Yun still believes that he is a person who has pursuits and goals. A person who has pursuits and goals would definitely rather die than live like this without any meaning in life. Wen Zhao's words are just to give Su Yun peace of mind. However, his words just so happen to trigger Su Yun's heart. Su Yun can't accept such an ending. He can't just watch Wen Xiao degenerate like this. Watch Wen Xiao become a cripple. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.